Welcome to the March 13th, 2023 Troy City Council meeting. This evening we're honored to have Pastor Simeon Timbuk from the Bethesda Romanian Pentecostal Church to provide our invocation. So please rise for the invocation and then remain standing for our Pledge of Allegiance.
Oh, Heavenly Father, we are before you tonight and we invoke your name, and we are thankful and grateful for blessing us, for blessing the city of Troy so far, Lord. And we are asking you to bless the meeting tonight, the mayor and the city council members with your wisdom. Bless the city with your protection. Bless those who are here tonight, Lord, and your name to be glorified and the entire community to be blessed by you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the republic
for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Pastor. We'll call the March 13th, 2023 Troy City Council meeting to order, and I'll ask for the roll call from Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Councilmember Brooks?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Gall?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present this evening, and we do have City Manager Mark Miller via Zoom with us as well. In case you notice his empty seat and see him on the screen. So he's larger than life. All right, first up on the agenda is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have one this evening, one of my favorites. C1 is a proclamation to honor Lieutenant Thomas O'Haron as 2022 Firefighter of the Year. So Lieutenant, if you'll join me down at the podium, I'm gonna have Chief Hollinger come up as well. How are you?
Well,
Good to see you again. All right. I do have this proclamation, and I'm honored to present it, Lieutenant. It's a very special thing, honestly. Firefighter of the Year is a big deal in our city, and we couldn't be prouder of you and couldn't be more honored to represent or recognize one of our wonderful firefighters this evening. So I'm going to read this proclamation into the record for everyone out here to hear, and then I'll let you say a few words if you're up for it. So this is a proclamation to honor Lieutenant Thomas O'Haron as the 2022 Firefighter of the Year. Whereas Thomas O'Haron became a volunteer firefighter, joining Troy Fire Station 1 26 years ago on February 3rd, 1997. And whereas his selection as Firefighter of the Year is due to his many years of dedication to the Troy Fire Department, having served with honor and dignity in all of his roles at Station 1, including firefighter and lieutenant. Lieutenant Thomas O'Haron models the core behaviors of the Troy Fire Department, which are professionalism, integrity, honor, and humility. And whereas, during his service with the department, Lieutenant O'Haron has routinely performed his duties in an exemplary manner. He served on their Special Response Unit from 2003 to 2006. More recently, he oversaw and led the revitalization of the Troy Fire Department Honor Guard. This task included recruiting and training new members, redesigning and modernizing the uniforms, and expanding the role and involvement of the team within the community. And whereas Lieutenant O'Haron was the leader of the Troy Fire Department's water battle team for over a decade, which won many of the battles against other fire departments. At Fire Station 1, he often leads weekly training, serves on the open house committee, and helps in any aspect that he can. And whereas Lieutenant O'Haron is an excellent role model for the probationary members, and he has been recognized for his efforts with several awards, including Station Member of the Year for Station 1 in 2009 and 2020. He also received multiple meritorious service awards, safe driving awards, and unit commendations for his actions at incidents over his 26 years serving the Troy community. He also served on the Special Response Unit from November 2002 until March 2009. And whereas Tom grew up in Troy and graduated from Athens High School, some Athens students here to celebrate you too, in 1992, he and his wife Annette, who happens to be here as well, are proud of their children, Chloe, who's 18, and Riley, who's 14. He works for Krager Plumbing as a journeyman plumber. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor, City Council, and City Management of the City of Troy does hereby join with the citizens of Troy to express sincere congratulations to Lieutenant Tom O'Haron on the occasion of being chosen 2022 Firefighter of the Year by the Troy Fire Department. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council commends and thanks Lieutenant Tom O'Haron for his achievement, leadership, and dedicated service to the citizens of Troy. Lieutenant, this proclamation is presented this 13th day of March 2023. It's signed by myself as mayor. All members of our city council have signed it. we honor you, we commend you, and we thank you so much for your service, and we present this to you, and again, say thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, people are not here I want to thank are the people at the station who support me and helped with my training. This is a great honor. I really appreciate this. I'm very overwhelmed, and I appreciate council's support. And of course, Chief Hollingers. And I'd be killed if I didn't thank my wife. Really appreciate this. Thank you.
We celebrate and honor you so much, and your humility is also very charming and awesome, so thank you. Let's scoot over to the side. We'll make a better picture. All right. He's very humble. Yeah. Isn't that awesome? All right, that concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations this evening. There are no carryover items. We do have 2 public hearings this evening. First up is E1, public hearing, Long Lake and Crooks Planned Unit Development, file number PUD 2020-018, revised concept development plan, northwest corner of Long Lake and Crooks, section 8, currently zoned O Office District. I see and we'll be making the presentation. Good evening, Brent.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council. Nice to see you again. I was last up here a week ago with a different PUD project, and that PowerPoint presentation included a educational component for council and for those who were in the audience and following on TV, because a PUD is kind of a complicated project. So we went over various elements of the PUD, and I'm not going to go over those again. I'm just going to hit a couple highlights just as a reminder. This is the main takeaway from last week's presentation, was that a PUD is a negotiated process. All developers are different, all properties are different, all challenges, neighbors, everything's different. So every process that's involved with reviewing and approving a PUD is different, and everything is negotiable. From the uses to the height to the setbacks, the details, everything's negotiable. And again, a PUD, it's clipped the bottom of that slide. It says PUD. What a PUD tries to strike is a balance between what the developer seeks, which is flexibility, and what the city seeks, which is predictability. And the PUD and the PUD agreement is where they meet in the middle to strike that balance. As I mentioned, it's a 3-step process. The applicant is before you this evening with a concept development plan. If you recall last week, the developer for that site was not interested in any kind of flexibility. Although they proposed 3 different housing types, they knew exactly what they wanted. They really weren't that concerned about phasing and flexibility, so they combined the concept with the site plan. This is a different development application. This developer seeks flexibility, and this developer therefore only seeks concept development plan approval. So what they strive to achieve tonight, if approved, is the overall concept would be approved, the property would be rezoned to PUD, and the PUD agreement, the legal document, which you've got a copy of in your packet, would be approved. So those three things, that's the entitlement that they would hope to achieve this evening. If they're successful this evening or at a future meeting, their next step would be submitting a PDP, a preliminary development plan, also known as basically a site plan for each future phase of the development, and that would be determined by market conditions and who is interested in applying, et cetera, et cetera. But so to be clear, they just seek CDP, concept development plan approval, this evening. The site is located at the northwest corner of Crooks and Long Lake Road. It is approximately 24 acres in size. It's zoned O office. The site's vacant. There are some small state-regulated wetlands on the site, and there's a lot of trees. There was over 1,000 trees, and I looked at some historic aerial photography, and if you go back to our first aerial photograph from 1963, it's a farmer's field. It's almost bereft of trees. Same for 1974, the same for 1980, it was farmed. It was acquired by Kelly Services as an investment parcel, I believe, in the 80s. It was left alone, and what happens when, you've all seen it, when property is left alone for 30 or 40 years, invasive plant species take over, and now we've got 1,000 trees on the site. Most of them are not high quality. They're invasive species like cottonwood and elm and things like that. But there's value in 24-acre woodlots. I'm not saying that, but they're not high quality trees on the site. At the end of the day, the proposal is the concept development plan proposal proposes 3.6 acres of natural areas, and I'll get into that in a second. So I think it would be interesting to talk about how this concept kind of evolved over time. We got into it a little bit for the last PUD, which was over the course of 3 or 4 meetings. This was 5 meetings. So just like last week, this project was submitted to the Planning Commission. They provided a lot of feedback over a number of meetings, and they squeezed and squeezed and asked for a little bit more and negotiated a little bit more, and it got better and better and better, just like last week. So we'll go really quickly through this. So this is the concept that was presented January 2021. You can see there's a lot of parking on the site. There's not a lot of green open space on the site. There's a water feature down here. The wetlands I talked about earlier, they have not been preserved. They've been basically all filled. Notice up here in the northwest corner, there's retail. Some of the feedback that Planning Commission gave this first blush of a concept was there needed to be more integration of uses. There should be more residential on the site. Where's the open space? There should be lots of activities to attract residents. This should be a destination for families to gather. And again, way too much surface parking. So, February 2022, this is the revised site. Look in the northwest corner. This was retail. Now it was a 120 unit mid-rise residential building. So they listened and they proposed residential there. Also notice less impervious surface. There's a wetland proposed to be preserved there, a wetland proposed to be preserved there, a lot more green space. The Planning Commission liked the direction it was going in. They asked the developer to provide more walkability, be bold, be creative, provide visual illustrations of what some of the things you're trying to capture on the site, which I'll show in the packet later on. Still too much surface parking. So we see the revised plan from July 2022. Essentially the same. They've started to fine-tune some of the amenity spaces. So you see, again, the wetlands area, now they're proposing some amenities. Fitness trails, benches, art, elements like that to make this a better space, more attractive for residents, for families. But the criticism from the Planning Commission was that there was still too much parking, and the open space and the amenities could be better connected. This was a big jump forward in September of 2022. Significant strides. The Planning Commission was significantly more pleased with this rendition. They listened and they provide way more pedestrian connectivity. They got very creative. They added a third restaurant use along Long Lake Road. They brought the buildings closer. They put the parking in the background, eliminated a significant amount of parking, really leaned into the open space amenities available on the site. Which brings us to the concept that's before us this evening. From the changes that they made from the September 22 version that was last on the screen, they added a significant amount of trees to the Great Lawn element here, which is an open space element that kind of ties the restaurants along Long Lake together. And this final concept you see as a significant open space and amenities. It's got lodging, a hotel over here, multi-story residential here, office, professional office, potentially residential, parking here, office here, and a parking deck. So that's kind of the overall concept. What's a little bit confusing is this represents a potential build-out of the site. It's not necessarily going to look like this. That's kind of the philosophical concept you have to wrap your head around. Is it could look like this, but it's going to depend on how this project phases out over time. And let me explain. What you're approving really is this. It is block areas that are comprised of concept development areas 1, 2, 3, and 4, as well as 3 amenity zones, A, B, and C. So let's take them one at a time. Development area 1, according to the developer, we will see is there any way to, I can't see the bottom of that slide.
Unfortunately, I can't. It's the limitation on Zoom.
Okay. Well, I would say that so far, I give the new upgrade a C-, based solely on my 10-minute standing here. So this development area is residential. I haven't memorized this, and I want to. There's a massing and height in the bottom corner there, and it has the minimum and maximum heights of those buildings in that development area. I'm looking it up now.
Page 13.
Take your time, Brett, truly. Fine.
I'm sorry, I
No, it's
didn't.
all right. Let's have it right as opposed to in a hurry. Go ahead, whatever.
I was going to say, we could find
Thank you for your patience. It just cuts out that last line. The minimum height for the residential building is 3 stories. The maximum height is 7 stories. So it gives you. That's helpful. Thank you. Good job. Gives you a kind of a maximum massing and what one could expect there. But again, the building may look like that. It may not look like that. But it's a representation of what that could be. Next is development area 2, located along Crooks Road. You see a parking deck and an office building. Minimum height 4 stories, maximum height 10 stories, or 150 feet. Then we've got development area 3, located in the center of the building. Office and residential mix. Maximum height of minimum height of 4 stories, maximum height of 10 stories. And finally, development area 4 in the southwest portion of the site. This is a hotel or residential building. They've got flexibility in the PUD agreement to do either. If built as a hotel, it would be designed and constructed in such a way that it would be readily convertible to residential in the event that a hotel wasn't successful there. And the height of that building ranges from 3 stories to 7 stories. So those are the 4 development areas. There's also 4 restaurant outlot buildings located along Long Lake Road. And what we didn't want happening was was a developer coming along and initially just building the 3 restaurant buildings, and then we've got a site, the next 20 acres is vacant for the next 20 years. We didn't want that. We wanted the restaurant buildings to at least follow the first phase of the development. And as I indicated, we expect development area 1, which is the residential component in the northwest portion of the site, to go first. And once construction is started on a phase, a restaurant building or buildings could be constructed, and they can also be combined with the future phase of the development. So it is anticipated that they'll be developed when they're developed, but we didn't want them to be standalone phases moving forward. And then we've got a massing plan that shows all the massing of the 4 development areas. Just kind of gives you a potential maximum build-out scenario of that site. And then we show the 3 amenity areas, A, B, and C. The area on the corner of Long Lake and Crooks here is state-regulated wetlands, and that's proposed to essentially be left alone. There'll be very minimal work there. This center area, there'll be more amenities there, like pickleball courts and sitting areas and trash cans and other bike racks and other amenities. And then up here we've got a dog park, we've got some other amenities. And they will, with each development phase, there'll be a corresponding amenity phase that's constructed along with it. So they'll proceed hand in glove. So it's a very innovative approach, and provides the developer with flexibility, but again, provides the community with predictability, because we get the amenity areas hand in glove with the development areas. So it's a pretty good plan. We asked the developer to give us some images of what they propose, and this is not to suggest that the buildings are going to look exactly like that, and the hardscape and the seating is going to look exactly like that. This really provides images that show what they're trying to capture in terms of character and flavor of the development. You see a lot of places where people are gathering and enjoying the outdoors, eating, relaxing. So there's a wide range of benefits associated with this development. Just go through them really quickly. It calls for horizontal mixed-use development, which is consistent with what the master plan calls for in the North Troy area. It's developing an underdeveloped and very prominent site that, again, was initially purchased, my understanding, by Kelly as an investment site. It was never proposed to remain undeveloped forever. It was purchased to develop. It's just taken decades. Outdoor plaza areas, outdoor dining areas, pedestrian circulation paths, recreational amenities, public art, and wetland preservation of, like I said earlier, about 3.6 acres. We went over the standards last week. I'm not going to read these. The applicant is required to meet a significant number of these standards. I underlined the ones that seem to apply here, and it's a lot of standards. So 2 pages of standards. Again, the Planning Commission considered this item at 5 Planning Commission meetings. The last meeting was January 24th, 2023, and they recommended approval 9-0. And the developer is here this evening, and I can answer any questions you have, and if I can't answer, then certainly the city attorney or the developer can.
Thanks, Mark. Is there an additional presentation from the developer, or just here for questions?
I'm seeing head shake.
Head shakes, too. Just making sure. Okay, good. All right. Well, appreciate that. Question time. I have a couple, but who wants to start? Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you very much for the presentation, Bavanon. The one question, well, I had a couple questions actually, but the predominant question that I have is the traffic impact on this development, especially considering the fact that, hotel versus residential, and there's a big difference in the amount of potential levels of the, buildings, like 3 versus 10, 4 versus 10.
That's a great question. So the applicant submitted a traffic study, and it's very difficult to review a traffic study at this point, because we have a potential maximum buildup, but there's so much flexibility wrapped in the concept that we don't really know exactly what's proposed, and we don't know when it's proposed. So we've got an overall traffic study that kind of looks at it in broad strokes, but for each phase of the development that's going to come before us, they're going to have to submit a traffic study that's going to have to be reviewed by our engineering department, by our consultants, et cetera. And a reminder that the next step will be a phase or phases of the PDP process that will go before the Planning Commission at a public hearing, come back before City Council at a public hearing. At that time, we'll look at traffic, we'll look at the massing of the buildings, et cetera, and we'll look at the concept, and we'll look at what's proposed as it compares to the concept, make sure that it's consistent, and so that's why the foundation's here with the concept, with the broad traffic study. But you raise an excellent point. We're going to have to really drill down. We had a meeting with staff, consultants, the applicant, and the road commission, and the road commission was kind of like, well, what's proposed? Well, at this point, it could be this. Well, is that what it's going to be? Well, no, it could be that, but so it's a little bit confusing. It's a little bit of a mental leap of faith because to show a picture to Planning Commission and council and residents of what it could be that, but it probably isn't going to look like that, and it's a little bit confusing.
Yeah.
I hope I answered your question.
Common with PUDs. Plenty other PUDs in our city have done this way, right? I mean,
Yep.
That's the way it goes.
Yep.
Can I, just a follow-up to that while we're on it. The PDPs, that goes to Planning Commission for public hearing, and then it comes back to council
Yes.
again for
Correct.
each phase?
Correct.
Okay. Sorry. Go ahead, Councilmember
Okay,
Brooks.
that's fine. Oh, thank you. And just to confirm, some of the amenities will be open to the public and some of them will be closed to the public and private, is that?
Yeah, I believe they're going to be, this is going to be a private development, so they're going to be quasi-public amenities. So if one goes there to go to the restaurant and walk around, the benches, the sidewalks, et cetera, will be available to the public. In terms of availability of the pickleball courts and the dog park, you'd have to ask the developer what the plans are for that. I don't know.
Okay.
But at this point, the city attorney can correct me, but I went over the PUD agreement and I didn't see language in there related to easements and provided, making these facilities purely public. I didn't see that. I don't believe that's proposed. Lori's agreeing with me.
Okay, I'll let others.
You good, Kat?
Yes.
Do we want to have, I'm curious about that issue myself. Obviously, if it's attached to residential, it makes sense that it stays more private, but if it's in the middle of a public space where people are walking, I don't know how you'd enforce not letting people use some of those amenities. So I'm just curious what the developer plan is for that, if we can have that chance.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Tony Antone. I'm with the Kajoyan Companies. Just very briefly about us, we have been developing in Troy for well over 30 years. Some of the buildings that you know very well, PNC Center, we developed the Troy Marriott, the Liberty Center buildings next door to those. We did the Flagstar headquarters, 900 Tower Drive, U.S. Steel, 5440 Corporate Drive, 5250 Corporate Drive, Troy Corporate Center. So we've done a lot in Troy. And this is kind of our capstone, which maybe it's not our last one, but we're really pouring our heart and soul into this Long Lake and Crooks development because we love the city so much and it's been so good to us. Just briefly, we've partnered with Gensler. Chris Beck is here from our team. We have also Chris Kajoyan, Leslie Arcado from PEA, Tyler Tennant from Daughter Man. And we have also partnered with Randy Wertheimer and Nate Forbes on the multifamily portion of this. The multifamily piece in the top left corner of this site will be the first kickoff of this overall 25 acres. And with it, we plan to build the amenities, the core amenity zone A, which would be the pickleball courts, the bocce, what we're calling the Great Lawn, and the ice skating rink. And we do anticipate opening those up to the public. So our hope and our goal is that this would be a community area gathering spot. We expect it to be very vibrant, and we're really, really excited about this. Just another couple quick words. after 2 years of the Planning Commission process, it was a remarkable process. It works. I mean, it clearly works because they took us from a mindset, and we together kind of developed what we think is a really great plan for this gateway to North Troy. So we're really excited about it. Every Planning Commission member poured in their heart and soul into what we were trying to envision, and they made it better each time, and we were able to come to what we think is a great plan. As Brent said, it's going to continue to develop, right? Nate and Randy are going to build their incredible project, multifamily. We have several hotel operators, higher-end hotel operators, not limited service type folks, but higher-end who are very interested in this area of Troy. Several restaurants have already reached out to us. So we're going to make this something really special. Lots of areas for the public to gather and to eat and to, just really, I think, create memories. So I'm happy to answer any other questions.
Questions? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have several. The first relates to around the proposed, or just the idea of the office space. I know that can change between the concept versus what we may see down the road. How might you make that determination? The range is 4 floors to 10? Is that just the market?
It is. So let me back up. We're partnered with a company called Cunningham Limp. Cunningham Limp has built 70 buildings in Auburn Hills alone. Really, everything you see up I-75 is, from TI Automotive to Visioneering, all buildings that we've built. And there's no more land over there. They either have to go to Grand Blanc and those areas north, which struggle with utilities, or they have to come south. And so we have a site that we feel really works for a headquarters, and it will depend on the market. People always say, well, office is tough right now. Oh, okay. We're the developer that just did the Comerica Bank deal for 340,000 square feet in Farmington Hills. They wanted to consolidate. They went from 4 buildings down to 1 campus. And there are others like this who want to bring their employees back into the buildings and to have an amenity-rich atmosphere, a live, work, play. So yes, it's up to the market, but we do feel that it won't be long before we get those headquarters. We already are talking to a few, but that portion of the site won't take as long as you might think.
Okay, that's helpful. And so with that, because I think my initial reaction is what we hear demand in the city is residential. And I think in my initial, thought was, gosh, love to see more residential. But you guys know the market. I know the market's going to dictate some of that. With regards to the office, so a lot of what people are talking about, kind of urbanists and others, when it comes to the future of work, is they talk about exactly this, work, live, play, which you're doing, but also this concept of inside out, outside in. Like, people want to be in buildings and feel as if they're outside. Or when people are inside, they want to be able to easily get to trails and amenities and things that they can do. And some of that's in it. But just, how much as you think about this, are you, I think of like Urban Land Institute and different webinars I've been on and trainings, that is really front and center. Because to be honest, a lot of what we have in Troy is very conventional. And
yeah, you're absolutely right.
Future. Even PNC, it's conventional.
But you know what? You're absolutely right, and we 100% agree. This is going to be a special project. But PNC Center, it looks so conventional, right? But you know what we've done? We have created a huge fitness area. We've done outdoor seating. We've done conferencing. We've done a golf simulator. We have a mother's room. We have multiple eating areas. So what we're doing is we're creating these amenity-rich atmospheres. And I think that's exactly, I don't think that, it's not going to be a boring conventional office building. And remember, you're going to get to see that, right? We're going to come back to planning and city council for each phase. So that is going to be dependent on what this headquarter operator who wants to be in Troy, Michigan says they want, and then we're going to come together and bring that forward.
Exactly, exactly. I knew that's what you were thinking, like green roofs and all sorts of things that just bring that sense of the outdoors, even in.
For sure.
Other question was, what other developments do we have like this in Metro Detroit that you could point to?
Not many.
I can't really.
No, this is really going to be unique. If you think about the city of Troy, how many larger pieces are left? Right? So what we see is, we keep calling it the gateway to North Troy. I don't know if that's going to be the name for it or not, but this is what we see. This area is ready. It's ready to become kind of a mini Big Beaver corridor. It has it. The people are there. People are coming back into the offices, and we think that it's prime to be made, kind of that special development. That's why an ice skating rink, pickleball, bocce, lawn area for musicians, and all kinds of really neat things. We're going to have sculpture gardens. We're going to have all kinds of walking trails and benches. We want it to be truly unique. This is kind of our stamp, and we're really excited about it, as you probably can tell.
Absolutely. That was the final question, is just, have you done anything like this before? Or is this kind of the first kind of, this is again the
So we've developed a lot. I think we are the largest developer in Michigan, but we've done them as campuses. We've done the Farmington Hills Corporate Campus, which is 134 acres, lots of trails, but it's primarily office. We've done big retail corridors like Lyon Town Center and Lyon Crossing at Milford Road in 96, predominantly retail. This is meant to be all in one, and that's what we're excited about. And we know what we're good at, and we know what we're not good at, and that's why we've partnered with Randy Wertheimer and Nate Forbes on the multifamily portion, because they know what they're doing. They do a luxury product, they do it well, and we're excited to be a part of that with them. We're going to stay in the deal with them, but they're going to take the lead. They're going to quarterback that, and that's kind of how we're going to do with other parts of the site that we don't do on a regular basis.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig. Additional questions? Councilmember Erickson Gall.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't know if this question is for you or for Brent. Under the current zoning, there's been some concern expressed about the height of the building. What is possible under our current zoning, which I believe is office?
I think it's 4 stories.
It's 4 stories, yeah.
Yeah, 4 stories.
Okay. So what you're proposing would most likely be higher or taller than...
So the multifamily building will most likely be 5 to 6 stories. We've given it a little bit of a cushion to go up to 7, but it's likely going to be in the 160, 170 unit range. The hotel / residential would be in that 4 to 5 story range. The retail would be no higher than 2 stories along Long Lake. So we're not going to block, the rest of the development, if you will. And then the building in the middle, which very well could be phase 2 of the residential. In fact, Randy keeps telling me that's likely going to, with the interest that they already have, it's likely going to be a second phase of residential in that for that middle building. And then the office will just be market dependent. It could go up to 10. Do I see it going up to 10? It really depends on the user. If somebody's coming into Michigan and wants to do a 450,000 square foot building and they want to do all those bells and whistles that the Mayor Pro Tem talked about, we're just giving ourselves a little bit of a cushion to be able to accommodate those sorts of headquarters.
And currently, it's surrounded entirely by commercial, except for the cemetery that's on Kitty Corner.
That's right. In fact, we own the building to the north. We own 5250 Corporate Drive. That was a building that we bought from TransCanada, and we did a sale and lease back, and now we filled it up. It's 100% leased. So they only have 1 floor, and we filled up the other 2 floors.
And there was some discussion. I spent very exciting Saturday watching 5 Planning Commission videos. You lived through it, so you know what I'm talking about. And I agree with you. It was a wonderful process. I commend our Planning Commission on how hard they worked with you to try to come up with this concept. There was discussion about integrating public transportation. And I don't know if you have any more thoughts or clarity on what you're looking at to do with that.
We don't yet. That's it's kind of preliminary for that, but we are going to start digging into that. The biggest thing now is if we're fortunate enough to get approval tonight from this council, we want to really start taking our conversations with users to the next level. It's hard to make a deal with somebody when you don't have zoning. And so that will be a part of it. We just don't know the specifics of where and that sort of thing just yet.
Okay. Thank you. My last question is, there at the final meeting, there was a little bit of discussion about sustainability. I know, if I remember right, that is part of your, how you do business now. You're looking at sustainability, and so if you could.
Yeah, I mean, as you could tell from the site, there's a lot of open space. The Planning Commission really pushed us in that direction, and we're happy that they did. But again, all of those sorts of specific sustainability items will come with each phase, and they will be part and parcel with the user that's coming forward in each individual phase.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilmember Scott. I have a follow-up question. Sure. Actually, 2, related to both issues. I think my question might be for Brent first, about the height. Office, you can get 4 stories now. Flagstar's how tall? You'll know how tall Flagstar is.
Yeah, Flagstar is 6 stories, I want to say.
And across Crooks, Tyler Technology, those are all taller
900
too,
towers,
right?
15 stories.
Right. So it's not that the rest is 4 stories around there.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's an isolated O zoning district, O office zoning district. The other properties in that area are RC and OM and different zoning classifications.
Right. Okay. So I mean, my point was there's.
It's not going to look out of place at all, right?
I understand. And then, I guess, to follow up on the sustainability, obviously it's hard to talk about sustainability and concepts when you don't have projects in mind, but that's where the next phase would come into effect. I'm certain our Planning Commission will hammer you on that.
Well, yeah, they will.
Council,
oh, they will. And as Ms. Brooks said, I mean, that's when the traffic studies are going to come, drilling in as well. So we're going to come back with all of that stuff per phase. Make sure that, the city won't let us, do it any other way. So I believe that the process will work just as it has in this concept phase.
Okay. Additional questions? Councilmember Abraham.
Understanding this is still in the realm of what is possible, but ideally, when are you looking to get your first PDP to Planning Commission, and when do you hope to pull out the shovels and break ground in the first area?
Yeah, so great question. The first phase, since we have a signed agreement with the multifamily developer, is going to go very fast. We would expect to, again, if we're fortunate enough to get approvals tonight, we're going to kick off the architectural as early as this week, and then the hope is to be on the a Planning Commission agenda in just a few months. And then when would it start? It really depends. I think most likely spring of '24. Could be later this year, but I think conservatively it's probably spring of '24.
Thank you.
Anything else? City Attorney Bloom rarely asks a question at this phase, so I'm intrigued.
Oh, I'm not asking a question. I'm just offering clarification. I did have a chance to review the development agreement, and as to Councilwoman Brooks's question about the amenities, there is language in the agreement, the development agreement, that says that the amenity zones should be accessible to the public. So
yes, they will be.
Very good. Thank you, City Attorney Bloom. Additional questions? Oh, go ahead, Erin.
Thank you, Mayor. I think this has already been addressed somewhat, but when I think Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Karanga had asked about office space. My understanding from what I saw during the planning commission meetings is your intent is to make sure that when you're building office space, you have a tenant in mind.
I'm so glad you mentioned that. So that's absolutely correct. We are not building speculatively. This is going to, and we're not even going to touch that area until we have a user for it. So like that office building and the parking deck behind it, those trees are not even going to be touched until we come forward with a plan for that office headquarter user. I'm so glad you mentioned that. That's a really important point.
That's actually a good, that was one of my questions. Obviously, you're not going to, well, you just said it, you're not going to go in and clear cut except for that corner while we wait. That's, I think that'll help a little bit. Okay. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig.
Yes, I just want to follow quickly to that. Makes perfect sense. You want to have a client in mind to be able to develop around that. We do know there's mergers, acquisitions, companies combine. What if, that headquarters gets bought out and moves out? Do you expect also adaptability enough that, if it had to be reshaped?
Yeah, for sure. I think that's the risk you have with anything, I guess, retail, office, industrial. But yes, I think the wonderful thing about this site is that it's going to be very attractive to a lot of companies. I mean, it really has everything. Anytime I get a call from an employer, a tenant who wants to reshape their space, they're always wanting to talk about amenities. They always want to talk about how to entice their folks to come back and to be a part of a collaborative environment. And so we think this is going to have it. I mean, we've committed that with Phase 1, the multifamily phase, we're going to develop the largest amenity zone on the site. So that in and of itself is going to really be enticing for companies and restaurants and the like to come to this site. So yes, I can't predict it. I don't know what the future holds, but we're going to do everything that we can to kind of make sure that it's adaptable.
Any other questions?
One other quick question. At the last planning meeting regarding this, is it true that the time frame is about a 20-year time frame?
It is, and we set that kind of on the long end of things, but we take into consideration things like downturns. And when a downturn happens, you pretty much lose 6 years because it's like when 08, 09 happened, it was rough, and the development world didn't come back for a while. So we don't think it will take that long, but we also do need, if we're going to shell out this kind of investment with the amenities and the infrastructure and everything else, we need to make sure that we're not, kind of pulled back on when there might be a tough market that comes.
Any questions, David? Councilmember Hamilton?
Just briefly, how do we improve our process so that in the future things like this won't take 2 years to go through planning commission over it? I mean, it's a good process, but 2 years does to me seem like a long time. But then again, this is kind of a rare development. I haven't, in my whole time, 5 years on council, I haven't seen one like this. But to me, 2 years seems like a long time.
It was right during COVID too. Okay. So it's really unfair that it's, 2 true years. Okay. It's 2 COVID years. Okay.
15 years. It's like 15 years.
So I guess that's the best way I could say it. Honestly, I'd love to have gotten this done sooner, but it was a remarkable process, and it worked. It really worked.
I would like us to get, in future developments, to get to this point quicker. That would.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think you would in today's day and age.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Any other questions? We've got time, obviously, because we got to do a few things process-wise. Okay. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Brent, you didn't have anything else? All right, just making sure. Someone like to... I have to move the resolution before I open the public hearing? Don't know why. I can't remember suddenly.
Public hearing.
Do I open the public hearing first?
Open the public hearing.
Thank you.
Public hearing.
All right. It's a public hearing. All right. So I've opened the floor for public hearing. No one has signed up to speak on E1, but that doesn't prohibit anyone from speaking. If you'd like to, please. Did you want to speak? You can come forward to the podium, and per our council rules, you have 3 minutes, and the timer will be here. When the light turns yellow, 1 minute left, and when it turns red, your time is up. So thank you.
Yeah,
And this is on this project, right?
Yeah,
Okay,
and
go ahead.
I'm not a Troy resident, but I work in the area for 15 years. My name is Monica Seif. I'm from Royal Oak, so I'm close by. I'm basically against the development of this property. I've loved walking past the little forest on my lunch breaks. This was prior to COVID. To me, the acres aren't vacant. It's full of life with the trees and animals. And even though they might not be desirable trees to some, to me, they provide a huge benefit for the residents and the workers for the health and the mental health benefits. Page 50 of the Troy Master Plan even speaks to the benefits and notes natural features provide significantly more benefits if they are maintained in larger units, such as a complex system of woodlands, wetlands, and rivers or streams. One huge thing is the stormwater mitigation. So having those trees there helps mitigate the floodplain that's just on the other side of Crooks, which I found on the City of Troy site on the FEMA floodplain map. And I did want to mention, there's even a sign right on the property on Long Lake that says, "You are in the Rouge River watershed, ours to protect." So that's what I'm trying to do, is protect this little forest here. Because Troy already has such a low tree canopy. And this is sort of a page out of the agenda attachment. And it shows the little forest here, and there's so much empty parking here. Prior to COVID, because I've worked in the area for 15 years, these buildings, the vacancy rate is like up to 50% vacant. And working in the area, employers are maybe trying to get us to come back to the building, but we're resisting. So when you walk around, like even on a Wednesday, because that's the most popular day for the people that do come back, the parking lots are so empty. It's not teeming with employees coming back to the office buildings. So when you look at this, it's already all developed and parking lots everywhere. So I have a couple options to propose. Maybe the owners of the property could negotiate a deal with the already built up areas and develop there and leave the little forest alone. Or, and I know Kmart is probably not the most popular topic, but it's a huge complex on 40 acres that maybe it could be phased, and it's right across the street from all the Somerset and things, which would attract people that stay in a hotel. But my last proposal is...
Ma'am, that's your 3 minutes. I've got to stick by the rules.
It's my best one.
Is there consensus? Yeah. 30, we can give you 30 more seconds.
Okay.
Go ahead.
They could donate the land to the city and stipulate that it remains as the current natural state, and it would be a tax deduction for financial purposes. So thank you. I appreciate it.
It's quicker than 30 seconds. Thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you for coming forward. Any other people like to speak on this matter? All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing. Someone like to move the resolution for discussion? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move E1, public hearing, Long Lake and Crooks Plan Unit Development, file number PUD 2020-018-revised concept development plan, northwest corner of Long Lake and Crooks, section 8, currently zoned O Office District, as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve E1, public hearing, Long Lake and Crooks Planned Unit Development, file number PUD 2020-018, revised concept development plan, northwest corner of Long Lake and Crooks, section 8, currently zoned O Office District. Discussion. Councilmember Hoderick.
Thank you, Mayor. I live near this area, so I didn't have any questions because I've been following this closely for the entire time that the proposal has been coming forward. And I hear from a lot of my fellow residents, as you might expect, and have had lots of conversations, watched the early resident input in the process as well. There was a lot of listening to that. The preservation of the natural area is something that is appreciated by everyone I hear from about this proposal. The live, work, play aspect of it is resonating with my neighbors. So a project proposal in its first draft that had folks pretty up in arms, as they've watched, I can tell that they have connected. They're hearing that their input is being comprehended. The planning commissioners have really listened to their neighbors, and I watched it be pushed. So Councilwoman Erickson Galt watched all 5 at once. She binged the process, as it seems, on Saturday. I've rewatched some of it as well, and really appreciate the willingness to listen, because I think we residents helped this project to become a much better project. And I also think that we residents are fortunate that property is going to get developed at some point. So our challenge as a council is always to look at, if it's going to be developed, how do we ensure it's developed in the way that best meets our city's needs, desires, vision, and what it feels like around there. And I feel that this proposal, you know, a lot of folks would prefer nothing go there, right? And that you just let the trees keep growing. That's not the reality. It's a private property, it's owned, it can be developed. And so I didn't have questions because I've heard all my questions answered over the period of time. And I actually reached out to neighbors over the weekend to make sure they knew this was coming to us and that this had gotten this far in the process. And people are okay with this. So I appreciate the great work that went on between our planning commission and this developer, and for that reason, someone who's, you know, going to hardly be able to walk her neighborhood without getting feedback on votes on this, I do see myself voting yes, and I feel good about the yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. So this time, last time I put on my mud boots, this time I put on my snow boots and walked around on the land. And it is very dense. You can get in and out in certain places. But what I do, the reason why I make myself, with each of these developments, get the mud boots or snow boots and walk around, is standing as much as you can in the middle or somewhere on the edge. Like, what do you imagine this development there, looking at everything that surrounds you? And that's why I did have questions around neighborhoods like Councilmember Hoderick, who lives not far from there, and how would those be impacted, and the range of heights that are possible. We don't know exactly what those will be, but the range. But if I looked around there and understanding the current zoning in our master plan is office. Office has an even worse, if we think about the climate with the pandemic, there's no future in office as a zoning. My colleague, Councilmember Hamilton, asked a good question around vacancy rates. Basically, you know, office has doubled. And recognizing there is office within this mixed use, but I do trust our applicant that it'll be based on the market. He's not going to put in what's there, that he doesn't believe that there's going to be folks who can fill that. And I think what makes it very much the future, the current zoning is not the future. Office is not the future. And part of what we're doing is rezoning this, being rezoning to plan unit development, that is the future. Plan unit development allows for mixed use, allows for having these amenities the public can use, and having those trails and everything in there. And of course, if it was up to me, I'd love to see more residential in there. And with that office space, I'd love to see sustainability, green roofs. My own workplace, if you go in Big Beaver, the Kresge Foundation has those like green roofs with grass growing, and you have geese laying their eggs in the spring. But it creates a feeling of bringing that outside in when you're working, which is what people want today. That is the future. And I think there's potential with this to bring that about. The other thing, as you walk around, it doesn't abut single-family residential. That's something I really look for, and really when I'm standing in the middle of a development. So it's not abutting single-family residential. So, you know, we are listening to our residents with regards to that. This mixed use, As I said, it is the future, and I do hope that I would speak to, I know we're still in the early phases, before you can get that inside out, outside in, sustainability. I do think that's how you're going to keep people in those buildings, no matter what may happen. So I hope that, as well as honoring kind of the, I know it's a concept right now, but 76% open space is what is actually proposed, and hope that we can continue to have that. Also, what was a question I asked was about the tree cover. So I know you mentioned trees coming down, but it is written in is that the expectation is there will be a high, robust amount of trees in that development. That Planning Commission, through those 5 meetings, they negotiated, and I appreciate that. As well as the corner that you see today with all the thickets and with the wetlands and the difficulty with eagle and whatnot, they're basically going to look, there'll be a sense of familiarity with what you see today. So that very corner that people look at, there will be a sense of that kind of similar to what you see today. So I think for those reasons, I've seen this applicant ready and listen so well to what our great planning commissioners have asked and residents and the input that they've given. So I'm happy to support this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crango.
Okay,
Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. So, I mean, the fact that this project has come before the Planning Commission 5 times, I think says a lot. And each time they really listened to residents, they really listened to the Planning Commission, and each time they brought forth a new, proposal that improved every single time they brought it forward. Which I think is really good. That means that they were listening and adjusting and really trying to take into account all of the different things that everyone was telling them. I think the concept is very innovative. I really like the live, work, play concept, and I think it really resonates with people, and I think that we need to kind of evolve. I think, a lot of things have changed since COVID, and I think it's really important to kind of evolve with those changes. I really do like the amenities. I think that it's great that it's open to the public, and I really do look forward to kind of seeing the different phases as they come before us and continuing to finesse this project and make sure that it's a really good project and that I think it will be very good for our city. So overall, my vote will be yes.
Thank you, Councilmember Brooks. Councilmember Abraham?
Thank you, Mayor. Troy residents are used to seeing that parcel of land heavily wooded and have assumed it's always going to be that way because it's been that way literally for decades. But the reality has always been that it's private property, and the reality has always been that it's zoned as office space. That property owner could have, to use a fairly crude term, done a revenue grab and just built office buildings, built whatever was permissible in that zone, and it would never come to council. It wouldn't even have to go to Planning Commission except for certain things. It could have been built out in a way that would not have been distinctive, would not have been sustainable, would not have been, I'll say, the quality proposal that we're seeing today. And so as my colleagues have mentioned previously, so I'll try not to repeat it, this proposal brings in elements of flexibility that we want. Office is a dying zone. It's not the way of the future. And while my heart will break a little bit as the trees go down, but over a 20-year span probably, this is the right development that protects as much of that natural area as it possibly can and puts in the type of development that residents want. That quasi-public space, which really will be public space according to the lease agreement or the PUD agreement, enshrines that. that would not have been possible under the current zoning or in any other condition. 2 years to go through a PUD agreement that probably felt like you're going through Middle Earth. 5 meetings is a long binge watching. It's a full day. And you don't do that if revenue is the first thing on your mind. So I appreciate what the developer has done to reach out to residents to make this really a showcase within the city. I look forward to seeing what PDPs come forward to council phase by phase, and the amenities that go along with it phase by phase. Maybe it won't take 20 years to develop, but I'm confident what will be there will be something that every resident can enjoy. So I will be supportive of this measure.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo comments of my fellow council members. I think this is going to be an excellent project for this site. We have the benefit of being able to negotiate this process, and I also want to acknowledge very much our Planning Commission put a lot of effort into it, and I appreciate that the owners and developers worked with the Planning Commission to make sure that the process worked. And this negotiated process is great because now we have property and development that is going to benefit the people of Troy. It's going to preserve as much green space as possible. It's going to provide open public space that our residents can use. And it's going to be something out of the ordinary. It's going to be something, it's going to be a showplace. I really think it is. I am concerned about the traffic, which we obviously can't tell now. We need to know what's going to be there before we know what traffic will be an issue. But I'm confident that during the future process of this, we will be able to work through those issues and try to minimize the impact of traffic on that area. I like this development, I really do. I'm very excited about it, and I will be supporting it.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson Galt. Councilman Hamilton, do you have anything?
Yeah, just I kind of echo what everyone else says. I mean, the benefits here to me clearly outweigh the costs. Just from that'll bring in, it'll raise the property value of the city. It'll bring in substantial tax revenue here, which is good for our police, good for our fire, good for our roads. It creates jobs. I mean, it allows people that come to Troy anyway for various reasons to live here with the new residential. It allows people that currently live in Troy to work in Troy because it'll create new jobs there, and construction jobs. So to me, the benefit, there's other developments where it's a closer decision. This one really isn't a close decision, and I'll gladly support this. This is one of the best that I've seen come up.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. It's when I go last, I kind of feel irrelevant on something. Everybody knows everyone's voting, but I still have to say a few things. I think it's important. We rarely have PUDs come before us, and we've had 2 back-to-back, and it's been interesting, and a lot of, I think, our education component from last meeting has pulled forward this time, but here we are in a more traditional process, other than the 2 years it took to get to this point. But to that point, although that is a long time, I really do think the 5 Planning Commission meetings, and I watched you sweat up there some of those meetings. It wasn't always easy and fun. I know I think tonight might have been a little easier for you, a little more pleasant, but they were tough on you. And there were things said, be more bold, come back with something better, be better, be better, be better. And you did. That process evolved into something that is a far better product today than it was 2 years ago. I mean, you're nodding your head. You know it is, and I think it's going to make it that much easier to market to whomever you're looking for, which is ultimately, marketing and receiving a return on that investment is important. And for us, it's the same thing. That product is going to make it better for our city, better for our employees that work in the city, better for the residents who live in the city. it is always going to be difficult to cut down trees to build. We've faced that as long as I've been on council. A lot of nodding heads from everybody here. 2 years ago when this started, I was at the Starbucks near there, the old Starbucks, and the people were up in arms. They were saying, you know, this is awful. You have to stop this. You can't do this. A year and a half later, the same people were like, you know what? I think they actually have done a good job. To Ellen's point, kind of talking about our neighbors. I mean, people saw the evolution of this process and the work that the Planning Commission did to provide feedback to you as the applicants and the developers to make it better. And that doesn't mean everyone's going to be happy with it. Obviously, we had somebody come in tonight, and I appreciate you coming forward, even not as a Troy resident, to speak about that. You know, if that conversation about that property could have been had years ago before there was all this stuff, it might have been a little bit different. But the reality is if you look at the zoning map and if you look at that overhead image, while yes, it's awesome that it's different with the trees, it doesn't match the rest of the area in there. It is always meant to have been developed, and this plan is consistent with the rest of the area in that respect. And I am thankful that that corner will remain pretty much as is. I think that'll help some of the transition. And because of the phasing, it's not going to be someday someone's going to drive down Long Lake and see a wasteland. There'll be a process, and I hope that you'll be good and respectful along that way to make it the best possible process. I believe this was the largest undeveloped and developable private piece of property in Troy left. I think City Manager Miller's mentioned that. I didn't ask if Mark had anything to say through any of this, so Mark, yeah, all right, good. But that's a big deal for us, right? We always are talking about how there's nothing left to develop in Troy. Well, this is one of those pieces that really was one of the few remaining, other than piecemealing some of these other smaller properties. And because of that, I think it's really important that this is a unique development, and that you know, it should be, and that scrutiny is going to stay, right? You know that, you're aware, you've been seen us here now. Each phase is going to have a certain amount of scrutiny, and I think that's frankly really important to the process. It's important to our residents. It's going to be important to all of us. You heard some things tonight. Obviously, I'm sure that'll go into your thinking. But this project has the potential to be really an award-winning development in the state. I see it. And you know, the thing that is interesting to me, it's obviously smaller than our Civic Center property, but there's components of this development that mirror some of the development proposals that were done for this site back 6 years ago or so. And we obviously do a lot of community outreach, and this property is going to stay public use in the community space, but it's nice to see that concept of the live, work, play, the public features, all of that interplay being built somewhere in our city, that they were saying, hey, do this on private property several years ago. And well, now someone is doing it on private property. So that's really exciting to me to know that, okay, that system's working. And finally, these days, to have our Planning Commission recommend something 9-0 without a lone no or 2 no's, I think that says a lot. And that means there was a lot of satisfaction done by in that process. So I'm very happy to support their recommendation and, of course, vote to approve tonight. So thank you. I looked for Aileen over here. Aileen's not over here anymore. She's back over here. So with that, I'll call for the vote. Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We have another public hearing. E2, this one shouldn't be as long, is a public hearing zoning ordinance text amendment file number ZOTA 257 for places of worship. And Brent, that's you. I just realized I didn't know who was presenting, but it looks like it's you. Welcome back.
Thank you. As we wait for the PowerPoint to come up, putting aside the effects that Zoom had on the PowerPoint tonight, the AV improvements look and sound great, to a fault, because my boss's billboard-sized face was looking down on me in HD for about half an hour. Creepy, but it looks great.
That would be creepy.
So this is a zoning ordinance text amendment related to places of worship. Oh good, it doesn't cut it off too bad. So note to self, when I do PowerPoints, knowing there's going to be Zoom, I will make sure that it fits. And thanks, shout out to Dave for helping me last presentation. So zoning ordinances are, zoning ordinance is a law, and it regulates land use and development in the city. And it implements the land use and development policy document, which is the master plan. So master plan is a policy document, zoning ordinance is a law. And because it's a law, like all laws, the responsibility of reviewing and approving that law lies on City Council. And for zoning ordinances, the Planning Commission first holds a public hearing, make a recommendation before it goes to City Council. As we know, the zoning ordinance is comprised of about 350 pages of text and one map. We're talking this evening about a text amendment. If it had been a map amendment, we refer to those as rezonings, but tonight we're just talking about a text amendment. Article 16 lays out the different ways that text amendments can be initiated, and again, this is in the zoning ordinance. It can be initiated by a resolution of the Planning Commission or a resolution by City Council. It can be initiated by one or more property owners through an application, or it can be initiated by one or more persons acting on behalf of a property owner through an application. This was initiated by court order. So before we go any further, I want to state so it's abundantly clear, I'm not an attorney. I hopefully don't sound like an attorney. I'm going to mention a couple things related to the court order only to put everyone on the same page. I'm not representing myself in any way as an expert in this. Did I do something?
Hit the stop button.
There we go. There we go.
It's back over there.
It's over here. There it is.
We're back down to a C-.
So again, this was initiated by court order, and it involved a federal law that's known as RLUIPA. It stands for Religious Land Use and Institutionalized Persons Act. And can you go? Yeah. And I'll just read. This is taken right out of the federal law. And after this, Lori, I'm done. I'm done going down this path. But basically what it says is the municipality cannot impose or implement a land use regulation in a manner that imposes a substantial burden on religious exercises unless the government demonstrates, 1, a compelling governmental interest, and 2, is a least restrictive means of furthering that compelling governmental interest. I read that because that's what this whole thing is about, is this and how the court order kind of responds to this. So there's numerous stipulations in the court order. It's in the packet. I'll just go through these really, really briefly because it is relative to this evening. So one of the things the court order says is within 7 days, Troy shall annotate its zoning ordinance and put this statement here next to Section 4.21, it says on March 18th, 2022, a federal court ruled that places of worship are permitted as of right in the CF district. And there you have it. That's a snapshot of our zoning ordinance. We did what the court order told us to do. Another stipulation, within 7 days of the order, we should put a statement in bold capitalized font next to Section 6.21 that says on March 18th, 2022, a federal court ruled that Section 6.21 EF are unenforceable. We did that. Then there was another stipulation within 7 days. We placed the following statement on its website in a prominent place. And I'm not going to read it, but we did that. And finally, the court order required that Troy's administrative officials shall recommend that the Planning Commission and Troy City Council approve a text amendment to the zoning ordinance that shall repeal the provisions of Section 6.21 E and F that impose 50-foot setbacks for all yards for places of worship and prohibit parking within those yards, and which shall amend Section 4.21 to allow places of worship as permitted use in the CF zoning district. And that's why we're here this evening, is to formalize that step. Again, the only way to amend a text amendment is to go through the process of the public hearing of Planning Commission and City Council. So we had Carlisle Wortman Associates assist us with preparing a draft. There was input provided by both the city attorney and myself, and that draft was presented to Planning Commission at a public hearing. And you'll note one change. This is section 4.21, schedule of uses. We propose amending the CF district so that places of worship are permitted by right in the CF district versus special use. And then we made some other changes. We added standards for places of worship in residential districts. We eliminated the 50-foot front side and rear yard setback requirements in single-family residential districts. And we eliminated the prohibition of parking within required yards when adjacent to any public street or residentially zoned property. We held a Planning Commission public hearing January 10th, 2023, and the vote to recommend approval was 8-1. And that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, Brent. Any questions? I didn't think so. I'll move, I got to open a public hearing. Public hearing is open for this. I don't see anyone who's signed up for E2. It doesn't prohibit you from speaking. If you'd like to speak, please come forward. All right, seeing no one, I'll close the public hearing, and I'll move E2 public hearing zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 257, places of worship, as printed in the agenda pack.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Abraham, that we approve E2 public hearing zoning ordinance text amendment, file number ZOTA 257, places of worship, as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes public hearings this evening. Next up is public comment for items on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. We have 4 people signed up. As a reminder, council rules state you have 3 minutes. You're addressing the body as a whole. It's not a back and forth question and answer. You're given, like I said, 3 minutes. Timer will indicate when you have a minute left, when the yellow light turns on, and when the red light turns red, time's up. So first up is Lori Evans.
Good evening. Thank you for the time this evening. I'm speaking this evening to agenda item P, the comment that's being introduced by Councilmember Hamilton. I'm here this evening to thank the Councilmember Hamilton for introducing the discussion for a Troy Sustainability Committee and to thank Council for its consideration of this matter. It is clear a lot of time and effort has gone into preparing the information being provided to you tonight, and the team that has contributed to this and that has supported this deserves the city's utmost gratitude and appreciation. Troy needs a sustainability committee to help it face current and upcoming challenges posed by environmental change. Troy has the advantage of being able to learn from our neighboring communities, many of which have established similar committees and related strategic plans, about how to approach such an initiative with attention to equity, responsible resource management, and support for economic development, allowing us to take a further step to create a resilient community that centers the needs and realities of our residents and our goals for responsible growth. The recent experiences with DTE Energy and our residents losing power for several days, as well as similar long outages experienced over the last few years, provides just one case in point of how a sustainability committee can help to anticipate and address our needs and help our businesses and our residents. And this is the perfect time to engage at this level, as federal and state programs are available through the Inflation Reduction Act and related tax credit incentives to help subsidize costs and to provide access to additional funding and cost-saving programs. We have the opportunity to become leaders in how sustainability is addressed in this newly changing environment, both the political environment, the economic environment, and climate environment, in a way that strengthens business, creates meaningful change, and cements our city as a place to which young people want to move, a city where people choose to raise their families, that proudly values the health of our children and of our seniors, where seniors want to live out their retirement years. And as the largest city in Oakland County, we have a responsibility to step up and to meet this urgent need. I urge the council to pursue this discussion without delay and to help make Troy a leader in sustainability efforts. It is time to truly become the city of tomorrow today and to make our mark. Thank you so much for taking this step.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Appreciate you coming forward. Good timing, too. Good job. Next up is Fabrice Fabrice, I always say your last name wrong. Chmielauskas? It's probably wrong. Will you say it correctly when you come up so I can hopefully learn it this time?
Fabrice Chmielauskas, resident of Troy and parent of a child in Troy School District. So thank you for, David Hamilton, for taking a step forward towards creating a sustainability committee today with the council comment that you've introduced. Really appreciate that. Earlier today, I went to Troy School District Sustainability Committee meeting. And we now have a new science teacher who has taken the lead in leading discussions in this committee, not only on how to spend the new school bond money sustainably, but simply to organize the diverse groups of stakeholders in the school district to sort of develop a framework for sustainability in the schools. And this is something that could be true in the city as well. We have a diverse group of people there, including administrators, elected board members, parents / community members, and also the vibrancy of youth with several high school students promoting their ideas to introduce composting to the school district. Now, I'm glad to hear that the school district will be meeting city government in May, apparently. This could be a great opportunity to discuss collaboration on sustainability between the district and the city. One item that we discussed in particular was, building off Lori Evans' comment, enhancing resiliency in the schools in the city in the wake of the increasing number of power outages that we see. Mooted was the possibility of schools being a sort of haven for in the case of a power outage, using, for example, batteries and/or other methods to keep the power on in the schools to avoid schools being canceled on that day, and also potentially to creating a haven for city residents who've been affected, have nowhere to go with any power. The schools could be that place. So potentially a means for collaboration between the schools and the city. So this is one idea that a city sustainability committee, if it were created, could consider moving on for the benefit of city residents. And I just want to close with a little update on the city manager's report. There you are, sir. On sustainability initiatives by our neighboring cities. Since that report was issued, now the city of Birmingham has created a sustainability committee itself. So we're nearly surrounded now by cities that have taken this move, and I would look forward very much to seeing the city of Troy take the same step. Thank you.
Thank you, Fabrice. Appreciate you coming forward this evening. Next up is Tina Catron.
Hello, everybody. I am also here to talk about the comment submitted by Councilmember Hamilton, item P. My name is Tina Catron, and I live on Topaz Drive here in Troy. I, too, am a parent of 2 kids in Troy School District, and I'm also an environmental advocate, so here I am. I'm speaking before the City Council today to ask for your support in the creation of a Sustainability Advisory Board for the City of Troy that will help the city make important decisions on sustainability practices, better preparedness for impending climate disasters, which can be much more than just power outages. And, you know, making those, you know, excuse me, tripping over my words, you know, being more prepared creates more equity and inclusion. It also could possibly save taxpayers money by making city operations more efficient and making, you know, a lot of budgets a little more efficient. So, Lori and Fabrice really said it all. I don't want to be redundant, so I echo everything that they said. And I hope that all of you agree that by creating a Sustainability Advisory Board, we'll be showing the rest of Oakland County that we can move forward into the future as leaders instead of followers in sustainability. Like they said, you know, all of our neighboring cities are creating sustainability councils and boards, and we really need to follow suit and be the leaders in Oakland County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tina, and I'm sorry I've been pronouncing your last name wrong for years, so that's good to know. Thank you. Michelle Paulus.
Hi, guys. Council persons. I'm glad to be here, Michelle Palace. I'm just here to support the establishment of a committee. Thank you, Council Member David Hamilton, for coming forward. But I also want to say that there's been a lot of work on this proposal, this resolution, whatever it happens to be. And I know Mayor Pro Tem Rebecca Chamberlain-Crainga has also been involved in this, as well as other of you. So now is the time to get this done. Please set forward, moving forward with this. We saw what happened earlier in this meeting, that they cannot wait. There's a sense of urgency to have somebody speaking for sustainability as we move forward in Troy. So a lot of things are to like about what's being proposed, and one of them is the diversity. People from all over the city will be involved in talking about what's important to them, and so the inclusion, the diversity, all of that. And the way it's written, you guys get to make the final decision. Nobody's doing anything without your final word. So this is good, right? The risk is very, very low. So let's get this done. I urge you to vote on this as soon as possible so we can get moving forward with this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. That concludes those who have signed up for public comment for items on the agenda this evening from Troy residents and businesses. Although now is an opportunity for council administration to reply, I'd like to wait and do that during council comments. Sure. And, but I will say thank the four of you for speaking. We appreciate that, and I'm sure you're here to hear the conversation later. There's no postponed items this evening, and before we move on to regular business, I'd like to take a quick 5-minute recess. Sure. All right, we're back on the record. Next up is regular business. I1 is board and committee appointments. Mayoral appointments are first. I have one this evening. I'd like to move the resolution to appoint John R. Richards Jr. as an in-district resident member to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30th, 2026.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, that we approve the appointment of John R. Richards Jr. as the in-district resident member to the Downtown Development Authority for the term expiring September 30, 2026. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. We thank Mr. Richards for his willingness to serve and look forward to seeing him at the DDA meeting coming up on this week. And City Attorney Boom and City Manager Miller, I'm sure he'll be contacted and sworn in and trained accordingly, right?
Absolutely, Mayor.
All right, thank you. That concludes mayoral appointments this evening. We have no city council appointments, so we move on to I2, board and committee nominations. I have no mayoral nominations this evening, but Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga has a few council nominations to make, so I'll turn it over to her.
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm going to start with the Animal Control Appeal Board. I'd like to move the nomination of Tina Catron to the Animal Appeal Board for the term expiring September 30th, 2025.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve the nomination of Tina Catron to the Animal Control Board for the term expiring September 30th, 2025. Any discussion? Only that her name is Catron and it's the Animal Appeals Board. I'm fascinated by that. The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, Charter Revision Committee. I would like to move the nomination of Tim Burns to the Charter Revision Committee for the term expiring April 30th, 2025, and the nomination of Lori Evans to the Charter Revision Committee for the term expiring April 30th, 2024.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga and supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve the nomination to the Charter Revision Committee of Tim Burns for the term expiring April 30th, 2025, and Lori Evans for the term expiring April 30th, 2024. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Historic District Commission. I would like to move the renomination of Barbara Chambers to the Historic District Commission for the term expiring March 1st, 2026, as well as the nomination of Sadiq Rahman and the nomination of Rosalind Emerson to the Historic District Commission for the terms expiring March 1st, 2026.
Support.
Moved by Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve the nominations of Barbara Chambers, Sadiq Rahman, and Rosalind Emerson to the Historic District Commission for the terms all expiring March 1st, 2026. Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Motion carries. That concludes City Council nominations this evening. So we move on to I3. There was a late submittal request for closed session. I'll move I3, be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268H, MCL 15.243G.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we approve I3, the request for closed session, as the late submittal at the record on the yellow sheet. Any discussion? Vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes. Motion carries. After public business is done here, we will recess into closed session, and it's assumed that we will adjourn eventually from in there. Next up is I4, Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Flock Safety Cameras, Troy Police Department, and that'll be introduced by our Chief of Police, Frank Nastasi. Good afternoon. Good evening, Frank. Chief.
Council, what you have before you is requesting a bid waiver and also approval of the agreement. With me this evening, I have Lieutenant Nate Gobler, oversees our investigation section, and also also Matt Wayne, his representative from Flock Safety. So here's my first slide. It's up, so that's good. 7 out of 10 crimes committed are used with a vehicle. So this technology addresses that issue. So what is ALPR technology? That's automated license plate reader. Basically, it's just a small camera. It could be AC powered or solar. Most of ours are going to be solar, standalone in the right-of-way that we're recommending. Recommending 23 cameras placed throughout the city for maximum coverage. 2 flexible cameras to address crime trends. Let's say mail in a neighborhood's getting stolen. We would put it in that area, or something going on at the motor mall or any other business. So those would be the mobile ones. The pictures taken are saved to the cloud. They're encrypted on both ends. So it's proactive. It alerts the police of wanted vehicles coming into Troy, and also reactive, used to solve crimes. And Nate will be speaking of that with the investigative component. So it's $2,500 per camera per year. That covers the camera, the software, the data, the storage, and the maintenance of the equipment. So a little bit of history from the Troy PD perspective. We had our in-car cameras installed in 2022, the Axon Fleet 3, and they have the integrated Flock ALPR function in the cars, and that was activated in November of this past year, and we've already recovered numerous stolen vehicles. And a lot of times stolen vehicles, when they come into a city, vast majority, they're there to do more crimes, and we're finding that out that after the cars left, we got the catalytic converters missing, cars broken into, businesses. So what this technology we're hoping for is that it alerts us when these vehicles are in town, so we can have our men and women go into that area and thwart the crime before it occurs. So this slide here, just a small area around us that are already using, successfully deploying the Flock cameras. There's many more in Michigan and across the state, but you can see up there Warren, Macomb County, Oakland County, Madison Heights, Hazel Park, Southfield, Farmington Hills, Sterling Heights. I spoke to several different chiefs, and they're also in the process too, of trying to get these cameras in. They really are a game changer. A lot of the stuff you guys have been seeing on our social media largely is because of these cameras. And then I see stuff almost like daily out of our investigations in our SIU unit, which is plainclothes, utilizing this technology, especially for the investigative portion. At the bottom there, the platform allows agencies to share camera data in the hot lists. And the hot lists are basically, stolen cars, felony crimes, kidnappings, Amber Alerts, things along those nature. And that's part of the reason for the bid waiver, because we want to be on the same platform with all our neighbors. So what is captured? I get to try to use the laser pointer. If you see here at the bottom, it gets the vehicle plate, make, color, when it went by the camera, and how many times it went by. And it also can differentiate between vehicles. If we put the information, let's say a witness saw that it had a roof rack on the car, and then you could put that in if it had a decal in the back window, a sticker on the bumper, and then it can just eliminate everything else and hone in on the suspect vehicle. So it's indiscriminate evidence from fixed locations. There's no people, no facial recognition technology, no video, no traffic enforcement, no expired plates, no red lights, no speeding. It's basically used, the criminal element, like I said. The last one at the bottom, it works both daytime and nighttime conditions. So the proactive, like I said, when somebody's coming into Troy, we need to know it's a stolen vehicle, and real-time alerts when stolen or wanted vehicles enter Troy, and those other, kidnapping or Amber Alerts, along those lines. We don't have any cameras, of course, in Troy yet, so that's the component we're really missing. The investigative, of course, will help within the border of Troy, but we're already using it, and Nate will touch upon that, outside around us for solving crimes. So it's been really, really beneficial to investigations and actually catching these like professional career criminals and this organized component of like 5-6 different people working in concert to do these crimes. Flock cameras act as a deterrent. And that last line there mentions homeowner associations, motels, hotels, and commercial properties can install their own. It would be their own, it'd be separate. We don't share any information. Ours is for law enforcement only. I know there's some businesses in Troy that already have this technology and are utilizing it. So, transparency and community rollout. So it's very important to be transparent with the community, what the technology does do, and even more importantly, what it doesn't do. So the data is only held for 30 days, and then it's wiped. There's no live video, just pictures. The data is owned by Troy PD, and is not sold or shared with any third-party vendors, nor does Flock Safety do that, so there's safeguards. End-to-end encryption, it goes right to a cloud from the camera. Officers must have an official law enforcement purpose to access any stored data. And then when they do access the data, they have to verify it. Just like any other system we're using right now, if a stolen car comes up, we have to verify that it is still in fact stolen, that it wasn't recovered and accidentally not removed out of the system before any action is taken. All officers would receive training on the operating policy for the cameras. And then we're also, it's something, I think it's relatively new, this transparency portal, we're going to be adding it to the Troy PD website, and that basically has the policy in it and usage of the cameras. And anytime anyone contacts the department or has any questions, we're always open to that, and we'll be pushing out information on our social media too. So the next slide, I'll be asking Lieutenant Nate Gobler to come up.
Thank you, Chief. Evening, Council. I want to talk about a couple of success stories we've had. We're able to access the system right now. It's a database that we can access other departments' cameras. We just do not have any cameras of our own to collect data. In February of 2023, the Troy Police Investigations Section received a tip that there was going to be a pharmacy burglary in Troy with a specific location as suspect identified. However, there were a lot of things that were missing. We had the suspect's name, but we didn't know where he was or what kind of vehicle he was driving. We knew he was in the area, so we utilized the Flock cameras to identify a vehicle that was hit on a camera in Madison Heights, and it also recently traveled from Houston, Texas, which is where the suspect was supposed to be from. We conducted surveillance on the vehicle and followed that vehicle as it went to the location to commit the burglary. So having that predetermined information also led us to identify another vehicle that was involved at the time and really enhanced our investigation. Another instance where we used it was in October of 2022. We responded to the scene of shots fired at a hotel in Troy. Luckily, no one was injured. The victim did have an idea who a potential suspect was. We queried the Flock system and again got a hit on the potential suspect's vehicle, showing that it was out during the time immediately after the shooting, and it hit on a camera in Madison Heights. That, along with other information, led us to receiving charges against the suspect for discharging a firearm in or at a building. There's been several successes. It is been a huge component for our investigations. These are just a couple examples, but it really does play a part in a lot of our investigations.
Thank you, Lieutenant.
That concludes the presentation, and so we'll happily answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Any questions from Council? Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief.
Lean forward, Dave. It's hard to hear.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm getting all comfy back here. Yeah, I love seeing new technology like this being utilized by our police department. I think it's a great idea. I'm just curious, will you actually be able to get a hit on a camera in real time and be able to forward that to patrol officers on patrol, or is this more like retroactively a few hours later, a few days later while you're investigating?
It's real time. So
Within 15 seconds
wow. Okay.
Is the typical time for a response. And it would be on a hit for like a stolen vehicle.
Yeah, and you'd kind of set it up ahead of time. Okay, that's very cool. Yeah. What is the timeline until we would have these ready to go and have officers trained and to actually see it in the field?
Matt?
I can answer that. Good evening. So as far as getting cameras up in the ground, it just depends on some of the locations and permits that are needed from Oakland County Road Commission, city permits to actually get them up and running. As far as getting the police department trained, that's something, as you decide, if it is something to move forward with, our team will work on getting the team up and trained to use the technology. As far as getting on the ground, usually probably about 3 months on average, depending on the permitting process.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, good questions. Additional questions? Councilmember Abraham.
Just a comment. Thank you, Chief and Lieutenant Gobler, for walking us through what this is and what it's not, because there could be some who think, oh, it's a camera. They're speed traps. This is just a ploy, you know, to hit quota for traffic tickets. But the reality is that this is a game changer. It doesn't just keep our residents safe, it keeps our police department and our police officers safe. This ensures that you know where the bad guys are before they realize that you know where they are. You can act in a way that is more planned, more controlled, and to me, this is a no-brainer in terms of support. So thank you for bringing this forward. Look forward to this being implemented in a matter of months.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question. Do, at the state level, do Michigan State Police have any of this capacity or these cameras, like say, I don't know if there's any way to at some point kind of tap into that if they use them?
I don't know if the state police.
State police is a partner with us.
Okay,
Yep.
state police is a partner.
Okay, and right now it sounds like there's no partnership, but I'm just curious because, you know, maybe there, you know, that could be useful. And just wanted to say, since we're kind of sharing some comments too, I just really appreciate you're always thinking of the community, and I love that you're already ahead of it and thinking about how you're going to communicate this, and very transparent and exactly as was just shared, like what it is and what it's not. So just thank you for that thoughtfulness. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Should I move?
Go ahead and move it. Yeah.
I'll move I-4, Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Flock Safety Cameras, Troy Police Department, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hoderick, supported by Councilmember Brooks, that we approve I-4, Standard Purchasing Resolution 4, Omnia Partners Cooperative Purchasing Contract, Flock Safety Cameras, Troy Police Department, as printed in the agenda packet. A couple comments have been made, but Councilmember Hoderick?
I just, Chief was presenting, he used a phrase that I came to know and understand back when we had to make cuts in the city, and that phrase is proactive policing. And I mean, it's like jump up and down, woo, 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 at this idea, because that capacity is very much what our residents are demanding without knowing that that's the phrase or specifically what they're asking for, whether we're talking about the mailbox thefts, what's happening with cars, and whatnot. And you know, bad guys know no borders, and they come onto ours from various cities and go into the others. And what I really like about this is that we're seeing the connectivity to our you know, fellow cities, and I already know, we already are aware that the Troy PD and our fellow police departments, the Oakland County Sheriffs, the MSP, they work very well together. For us to be able to be, you know, another lever by having this is a really important element. So reactive policing is, of course, very important as well, but proactive policing, hearing that phrase, just what a wonderful tool that is being proposed and brought to us. And as Councilwoman Abraham said it very succinctly, it's a no-brainer, and it's exciting, actually. So thank you.
Any other comments? Just briefly, obviously, public safety is our #1 priority, responsibility, and job in this role, and certainly in yours. I'm again also thankful whenever you're bringing new things to us to help keep our citizens safe, to keep our residents and business owners' property safer, and this goes along those lines. Obviously, the other important communication fact of what this is and what this isn't, I hope that obviously there's going to be an initial push, but that will continue because the conversations we'll keep having, and certainly we value privacy rights in this city as we do throughout this country. But hearing you tonight explain exactly what it is and what it isn't, I think will for our residents in understanding that as well. So I appreciate that. Appreciate the opportunity to support something so beneficial for our community and to help keep you guys doing the good work that you're already doing. Vote Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. That concludes regular business this evening. Next up is the consent agenda. Does anyone have an item from the consent agenda they'd like to pull for future discussion? Councilmember Abraham.
I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Vote Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Councilmember Brooks?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Crainga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes. Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved this evening. They've been approved. Next up is memorandums and future council agenda items. K1, announcement of a public hearing. March 20th, 2023, a week from tonight, is a preliminary site plan review, file number SP 2022-0027, proposed estates at Eckford, one-family residential cluster, south side of Eckford, west of Rochester, parcels 88-20-15-252-028, -002, -036, -037, -004, -005, Section 15, currently zoned R1C, one-family residential district. So if you are interested in that project, it'll be on the agenda for public hearing next week. Next up is public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. I see 2 people have signed up. First up will be Dale Murish.
Good evening, Mayor Baker, council members, others in the audience. My name is Dale Murish, and I'm going to be running for the Troy City Council. I've lived in Troy since 1988 and have seen it grow and change, mostly good, but some bad. I'd like to be on this council to be able to provide my perspective during discussion of council business. I'm a retired GM engineer, so I would have time to do this job, which is way more than the council meetings themselves, as you all well know. Troy has very sustainable development. Troy has very little undeveloped land, and we want to have developments that fit in with the nearby neighbors, ideally that they are happy with, like Councilmember Hoderick's neighbors are happy with this current one. We don't want no new 4-story apartment buildings overlooking backyard swimming pools. We may need some changes in the zoning laws to remedy this. I don't know, I'm not an expert on that, but the 20-acre development proposal proposed at last council meeting had over 140 single-family dwellings. It might meet the current zoning laws, but cries out for changes to not put 500 people on a postage stamp. It would be nice if housing developments left most of the backyards forested for the wildlife. I'm thinking of south of Square Lake, west of John R., also south of South Boulevard and west of Crooks. Troy could end clear cutting and require that each developer specify which trees will be spared. The Fox Run Senior Citizens Development in Novi left a lot of woods and wetlands for the residents to enjoy. Some other ideas, we can also encourage apartments and condos to have recycling. It's currently not the case. Maintenance costs in city buildings could benefit from large rolls of toilet paper like many businesses already have. Automatic faucets too, where we don't already have them. fiscal restraint. Troy already has good fiscal discipline. I will propose an inflation-adjusted 1% cut in budgets for 5 years that might allow a property tax cut and help people who are struggling with inflation. Each department can look for creative ways to economize. Some of them mentioned already. We need to remember that we're spending other people's money and not just do we have it in the budget. Keep Troy family friendly. Troy is a great place to raise a family with good school districts in all parts of the city. Let's keep our emphasis on the library and parks and recreation while maintaining our great police and fire departments. I look forward to hopefully serving on the council, and I ask for your support. I think I would bring a diversity of thought. In summary, sustainable development, fiscal restraint, and family friendly. If anyone wants to sign my nominating petition, I'll be in the back afterwards. Not, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Murish. Next up is Mark Gunn.
Good evening. Just an update on the wall that with the groups along 75. We met 20 of the homeowner associations. We met, and it looks like we're going to have our day with MDOT in Troy at the Troy Community Center sometime in April, the date to be determined. So just asking if you can all support that and come out and show you're helping us out here for the get this up and resolve the noise issue. Right, that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Gunn. That concludes those who have signed up for public comment for items not on the agenda from Troy residents and businesses. Now's an opportunity for council and administration to respond or reply. Anyone like to? Councilmember Hoderick.
Appreciate the comments. And Mr. Murish, you brought up about the idea of preventing clear cutting when we're doing development and trees. We do have, I forget how many years ago it is now. Were you guys on council when we approved? I'm sorry, I don't have the information off the top of my head, and I'm already, it's a tiring evening. But we have very much worked to do that and have that, the Planning Commission at the time and City Council approved, and we've been working really well with developers to prevent clear cutting as much as we can, and when trees do need to be cut, making sure replacement is there. So I wanted, in case you weren't familiar, if you're not aware, something we worked very hard on, and at one point, the Michigan legislature in lame duck was looking at a law that would have, frankly, unraveled a lot of our great work trying to do that. So this isn't an easy thing to do. It's not always completely, zoning laws and whatnot aren't always completely within a city's control. And boy, did we make noise with our rep and senator at the time to say that law that you're going to be voting on does not reflect what we want in Troy, and it didn't pass. Thankfully. And so these are ideas that I appreciate you bringing and that you're thinking about, and I just wanted to share that with you. And I know you went through a whole list of things, but that specifically leapt out at me, and it occurred to me that others sitting here might not realize that's something we worked very hard on, because we know trees are important to our residents. We're a tree city. We want to continue to be a tree city, and we work really hard on that.
Thank you, Councilmember Hoderick. It was 2016, I think, that we did our tree preservation ordinance, and then it was followed up with the cluster development ordinance that goes to it as well.
That's why we pay you the big bucks.
Yeah, that's not funny. Any other comments from anybody in response? Other than thank the two of you for coming forward. I appreciate it. And Mark, as far as the MDOT and the I-75, if you haven't seen, there was a Bridge Magazine article that talked about this issue at length. There was a good article, a good piece. Check it out. It's shows that it's not just stuck here in Troy. There's other issues, and it's talking about statewide, which is a good thing, I think, for our residents, hopefully to get more attention. That concludes council administration reply. There are no council referrals this evening, so next up are reports. Does anybody have a comment on any report this evening? Councilmember Hoderick?
On what is it? 03A, the letter of appreciation to Public Works. Just wanted to echo it, and watching the storms come in and watching Public Works have to figure out if we're dealing with spring weather, winter weather, icy weather. Is the pavement going to need salt? 1 hour, yes. 2 hours later, the forecasters are saying, no, I don't know how you navigated it, but the streets remained very passable. And on top of it, the trees, I always say you guys are the unsung heroes, of the city and our public safety, so I wanted to sing about you for a second here. And it was nice to see that some residents wrote in to acknowledge that as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hoderick, any other comments on the reports? All right, next up are council comments. We have P1 is a council comment that was submitted by Councilmember Hamilton in advance, and it was actually revised, and there's a late submittal copy of it. It's not a red line, so I'm not exactly sure what was revised. So, but I'll turn it over to you, Councilmember Hamilton.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, the only difference was just some text regarding Open Meetings Act, FOIA, that I wanted to be a little different than what other communities did. But I brought this forward just to give an initial version of what a sustainability committee could look like for the city of Troy. And I wanted to get council comments and feedbacks in a formal setting, because I really don't know how council as a whole feels about this. And before we go too far, I want to see if there is a consensus here to move forward on this. I know right now I'm very cognizant that city staff is extremely overworked right now regarding the firefighter issue, and I don't want to bring anything forward that pulls them away from that. Part of the reason I brought this forward and is, well, because of that they're so overworked, but I still want to push forth the sustainability efforts in the city of Troy. I do think in the past we have been a leader on this, especially 10-15 years ago, but I feel like there is more we can do now. I'd like to empower volunteers in Troy that want to help us develop a sustainability plan, help us have sustainability permeate everything we do even more than we are now. And I think a committee could help do that without burdening staff with this, because I know there's a lot of people who are experts on this that live in the city of Troy that would love to be a part of it. And I think this is a great way to give them a formal recognition of a committee, and it will allow them to gather stakeholders throughout the city to help promote sustainability efforts. Another reason is, as was mentioned in the comments, everyone, including my house a little bit, but a lot of other houses have been just losing power all the time lately with DTE. A lot of communities are very upset with them. And as they mentioned, right now it's a great opportunity, because with the federal incentives and soon to be state incentives in place, a good percentage of residents in Troy could get solar panels with battery backups installed and have it 100% paid for by federal subsidy. And so I think the city is in a unique position. We have a closer relationship with our residents, and as we have in the future, as we're developing our communication strategy, and we're going to devote roles to communication, that I would like to see sustainability as part of that, to help residents take advantage of that, so their households are more resilient, so that they can use solar and battery backup to keep their power up when they lose power, as DTE is going through its thing. So really, I'm here to listen to council to see where they are with this, what they thought of the proposal as it was, if there's any changes, if a majority of council wants this to happen or not. We haven't really had a formal discussion on this. It's been brought up in council in resident comments, and so I just want to see where everyone else is at and what you think, and then a timeline of this, of when we can implement this based on the current city's capacity, because I know they're working 100-hour days right now to get this firefighter issue done the right way. So I don't want to do anything that interrupts that, but I just want to see where everyone's at with this.
Okay, David, good, thank you. I don't know how this is going to play out from a conversation standpoint, but I think we should be very careful not to start amending language or talking too specifically. No. There's not a resolution on the table, so let's keep that in mind. Obviously, we were given a proposal or a suggested or potential type. I'm not sure if it's an ordinance or resolution or exactly what, but we can look at that. So It sounds like several of you were involved in this process. I heard a lot from residents that a large group of people worked on this, so I'm not sure who that is or what that is, so I'm anxious to hear from anyone else up at the table.
Yeah, really, as far as council, like, it was really me and some residents, and I think maybe Rebecca gave a little bit of feedback, but other than that, I haven't. Yeah, that's it, so.
Yeah, I'm just curious, so who wants to start, if anyone? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for bringing this forward, Councilmember Hamilton. I'm definitely open to the idea of having a sustainability committee. It's important to me. There's a lot of talk about it, you know, other cities have it, so Troy has to have it. I don't think that is necessarily the reason why we should have it. I've heard about other sustainability committees in some other cities that are not really useful. You know, they're window dressing. There's cities like Royal Oak that have a very active and involved sustainability committee. So if we're going to do this, I want to make sure that it's something meaningful. The proposal talks about having council members on, and I don't have a problem with that, but I think it's essential that if we're going to do that, there needs to be a staff liaison. I think that's critical. You know, citizens have wonderful ideas and suggestions. Staff can come with reality, with what we have and what we're doing, because there may be things we're already doing that you're just not aware of because we don't always toot our horn about it. I think the one revision that you made, because I spoke with Councilmember Hamilton this weekend, it's absolutely essential in my mind that this committee be transparent and public. There was some language in there about it not OMA or FOIA not applying, which I don't even know that that's possible, but assuming it was possible, I don't think that's the approach we want. We want a very public and transparent process with this. And I like the idea of embracing diversity and inclusion. Also, our boards and committees, correct me if I'm wrong, but they're all subject to our ethics code. So that's very important as well. And then the last thing I would say is that we have recently involved in the Michigan Green Communities Challenge, and I would want to see that whatever this committee does, it works hand in hand with that process, so that, because I believe that the Green Communities Challenge is going to give us some concrete steps to sustainability, so I would want to see the committee working with that and with our staff in terms of making that happen. So,
thank you, Councilmember Erickson Galt. Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll follow just because I want to respond. Thank you, Councilmember Erickson Galt, for bringing up the Michigan Green Communities. So just to clarify, I think what was determined based on staff capacity is we didn't join the challenge, but we joined the network. And the network does, and you can also, as I learned, we can all join. Actually, I personally joined it as well. I actually was on a MML. It's actually run through the Michigan Municipal League. It's staffed by their staff members. So yes, like we have access to those resources. I think the decision was staff needed some time to actually do the paperwork to sign up to the challenge. And you know, there was some thinking staff needed some time. You know, it's budget season right now and some of what we're addressing in terms of public safety. But yes, you know, I think definitely all of this dovetails together is the idea of being a part of a network is we will get input on how we need to set this up. So we're already part of the network, and that's wonderful, and we will do the challenge. I think it is timely, thank you, Councilmember Hamilton, because we're heading into budget season. So we're about probably a month away in which we're going to see the proposed budget for the next fiscal year. And just to share with those in the audience, Mr. Mirisch, you shared your running, and others, the way the city operates is we operate in a fiscal year that starts July 1st. That's our fiscal year. And so a lot of things, like right now, we're ramping up to look at that budget, those proposals. So I think that this is timely as we think about what might be the staff support, what might be the things we need in place, the challenge, other things. So I think this leaves us into a place where, I've long advocated. I like that we do it in advance, but often it's very reactive to what staff need. And I still would like to say, as a council, we need opportunities to be able to bring more of that vision, our value. I mean, I think this is about values. Sustainability is about values. diversity, equity, inclusion is about values, and we need spaces to talk about some of those values and how do they play out across the board and what we do. So I do support, we need a committee. I have seen, as I was talking to different communities, Sterling Heights is very community driven. And it kind of reminds me of our community. So what I do know is, yes, there's a strong community group that was behind this, partnering with Council Member Hamilton, was honored to have a look at the work as it was developing, and just, I'm so proud of our community. And that's what you want. You want something to be community driven. And so we have the talent there to make that happen. The thing that's kind of challenging in our seat where we sit is, by charter, you can move forward in setting up a committee, but we're not, if I understand correctly, by charter, we can't staff a committee. There's certain things of what we can and we cannot do. We can be a member. Okay, City Attorney Bloom is nodding her head, because I remember having certain ideas around committees during the pandemic and supporting our small businesses, and was, told about what we can and cannot do. So we can serve on the committee as proposed, and this is a nice proposal around an ordinance setting up a committee. But the next step, a lot of it, if there is, and I would hope there will be consensus that we can at some point, hopefully sooner than later, we set up this committee, but staff has to take it. We can't, by charter, be the implementers of the committee. So that's where we do need partnership with city management. And maybe if others want to comment on what we as council can do and what we need, need of city staff to do. But I love this. I love it's community driven, and I look forward to this. And look forward to, as I hope, and budget. I have a lot of other things too, but we can bring this up with our budget conversations.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Chamberlain Craig. Councilmember Brooks.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton, for bringing this forward. I think this is very timely. I think it is important for us to consider. My question is, I guess, with the process of it. So, our attorney, what would be the process? Say, for example, if we said we want, what would be the process of
Well, again, this is your directive here, but Ms. Miller may also have some input in this, because it would primarily be his staff that would be responsible for it. As far as this language, I mean, obviously we would need to vet this. I also saw the Open Meetings Act, and Councilmember Erickson Galt is absolutely spot on. That's one thing that we would have had to have changed. I didn't review it in depth. I just kind of skimmed through that. There are some prohibitions from council, subcommittees in the charter of council, things like that. So we would have to vet that. You can do it as an ordinance. It can be created as an ordinance. It's sort of, I'm not sure where this draft is from. I'm guessing it was borrowed from a compilation maybe of other communities and things like that. So certainly you can do it as an ordinance. It could also be a resolution. I don't recommend that. I think it's probably cleaner to have it be just as an ordinance. So we would have to work with that. Again, the staffing of it, we'd have to make sure that it was vetted, that we have the ability to do whatever it is that is put forth.
Thank you, City Attorney Bloom. City Manager Miller, did you want to add anything from your perspective to that question?
At this time, I just would say that we don't really have specific staff to deal with sustainability, so that capacity would be an issue. But as the city attorney said, we're waiting to see exactly what city council wants out of this, and then we can look a little more closely at it and give some better advice.
Thank you, Mark. Appreciate that. Councilmember Brooks, did you have more to say?
No.
Okay, didn't know. Councilmember Abraham?
Thank you, Mayor. I think the last committee that was created was the Global Troy Committee, and that was roughly in the 2016, 2017 timeframe. Rebecca, you would probably know better. And it's been a while, but my recollection is that before it even came to the council table as a discussion point, staff had fully vetted or helped shape the committee, the structure, how it would operate, areas of focus, and the liaison who would take a very active role as part of his or her job to make sure that the committee was successful. Because as Councilwoman Erickson Galt stated, there's a lot of good ideas, but then there's you know, a dose of reality that sometimes has to be injected to understand what's wanted versus what's possible, and finding that place in the middle. As you know, City Manager Miller indicated, you know, staff is not presently available to perform that similar exercise so that we have a really solid proposal of what is possible. And that makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I'm generally supportive of the idea and would want to do it, but if we're going to do it, we got to do it well. And we can't go in there with the idea of we'll just figure it out if we get together. We truly need leadership with that staff liaison to help drive the conversations within committee, and then ultimately what comes to council. All that said, you know, we are entering into budget season, and the budget is a reflection of council's priorities. And as I've heard City Attorney Bloom say, as I've heard City Manager Miller say, you know, this is direction. We'll take direction from council. But what I'd like to see is how this fits into other priorities that we have and other challenges and other factors that we're all dealing with, so that we're not making a decision precipitously, because I think there's a number of people here that really want to do this, but we want to do it well, and we want to be thoughtful about it, and we want it to be effective. And to do all of those things, we really need to understand what is it going to take and how might it impact the other priorities. Because I do see this as something our community would embrace. Frankly, it would give a voice to the many things that Troy has done for many years and has not been very vocal about it, to move along this path. We have been leaders. We've been quiet in our leadership. This committee could help bring a voice, hopefully in a very productive way. But I have to be mindful of other things going on and make sure that we are planning and scoping this for success and not for something that will sputter and into, I'll say it, ineffectiveness. And so while I, like I said, generally supportive, but I think it needs more shaping. And I think it needs input from staff, particularly as we enter budget season.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Councilmember Hodrock, I saw your hand start to go up earlier.
Yeah, the business management process of the city for our budget is that early in the planning, staff gets a sense of the priorities from us, and we sit and meet and hear what they see are the challenges on the front line of the work that they do. We did that at an advance in November, and that has been guiding the budget process, and we have a staff that is on top of another very serious challenge is also needing to work to get the budget to us in April, because by charter it has to be approved in May. So for folks watching, your city staff is working on overdrive. And we heard a number of challenges that at the advance that are very important to residents as well. Seniors at our community center are speaking up about what their needs are, as an example. there's a list of priorities in my head. This seemingly seems like an easy thing to just do. Form a committee, have a liaison with a staff. There is only so much toothpaste you can squeeze from a tube. Just real talk here. If this was easy to do, all 7 of us are not opposed to this idea. Sustainability it's kind of a given in our culture and society now. And of course, it's something we want to look at. Our staff has looked at. We have a sustainability subcommittee of our planning commission. We have been a leader in many, many ways in the county, just quietly with staff bringing ideas forward to us that we've quietly implemented and gone along the way to do. And we will continue to do that. So there's, I want residents to understand who are passionate about this. You can't out-passion me, frankly, on the topic. My resistance is understanding, because I spent all day in advance listening to the priorities that our city has, that you would share. They're consistent with what everyone in the city is looking at needing. So these are the things we're balancing, and as this comes forward, one thing that we could do is consensus and direct city staff to please come back to us with your proposal. I am mindful of what is on our staff's platter right now. It doesn't mean that they won't be continuing to work on sustainability and looking at things in the day-to-day work that they do, much like on the consent agenda, where we see the police department had brought some months ago a mental health co-responder because a field clinician they know from a policy setting standpoint what we're going to support, and they are actively always mindful of that and bringing those ideas to us. We don't always need a committee to tell us that. We actually really need staff to bring forward these ideas. That said, I love the idea of a resident input committee. I love that it's happening with the school district, which is in the process of actually building new buildings and renovating. We aren't. We're not in a capital position that the Troy schools are to benefit from that fresh discussion. I applaud the folks that have stepped forward in doing that, and I would hope we can, have those ideas shared back to us. So when you see hesitancy, it's not because we don't share the idea or the desire to proceed. It is a resource idea. The phrase then comes back, but it's all volunteer. We'll do it all on a voluntary basis. The I-75 sound wall team, that was not a city-formed committee. And those residents gathered and worked and have been working with our reps and mindful of things. And so I would say when you see us having to kind of just say, we like this idea, but you got to give us time, that shouldn't prevent folks from going forward and maybe starting the work. So when staff and council and our budget process are ready to wrap our arms around what makes sense and what a committee could do for Troy specifically, there could still be work going on. I would encourage that. I'd come and attend. I'd participate. That I-75 team, they didn't have any supervision from us and worked very hard. So I don't want to be an anchor on the desire to volunteer and bring great ideas to the city. I really don't. So those are my, Councilman Hamilton wanted to know what our thoughts are. Love the idea. The timing, it's just hard to express how difficult the timing of this is. And I don't think I'm alone on council with that feeling. We still have a long night ahead of us when we leave. this room with some really important things. And that's where we're at. So we can talk about it more in the budget. Frankly, it's not necessarily a budget issue. We're not going to be hiring somebody because, frankly, you can't hire anybody from, it is literally bandwidth. I don't know if you've ever worked in a lean organization. I did. I loved my job and I loved every assignment that came at me. At some point, I ran out of bandwidth and I couldn't fulfill the role anymore and balance it in my life. So what I'm trying to look out for is what are we asking from our staff? And is it absolutely critical that we are asking for that right now when there are other critical factors? That's what's going through my head. And it's just the real talk. I don't know if it makes sense, because I can't always say everything specifically that I'm looking at in terms of challenges, but we're still recovering from some things. We're this close. We're getting there. We have this amazing team. We need to be able to take just a beat, and then feed this into our process. That's my honest reaction. That said, volunteer work could be going on so that when we do reach that point, boy, we want you to bring it, and we want to help facilitate it in a way that is best for the city of Troy. We don't want to waste volunteers' time. We don't want to do this in a way that's placating and patting people on the head. We want to do this for real, in an excellent way that really serves us. So that's my
10 cents.
Yeah, and I hope I may be a little too candid, but.
Well, I think I'm going to be a little more candid, but first of all, I think everyone's spoken, yeah, right? I'm not surprised by everything everyone said, in the order it went and how it was said. It's not, I'm fascinated by that for a number of reasons. Like Ms. Evans said, we're supposed to be the city of tomorrow today, right? I'm all for doing anything to keep us moving into the future, and I think conceptually, this is a great idea, but the concept and the actual deliverable are two very different things that I think we need to work through. And one, like I said, I don't think tonight's the night to work through that. And I think there's understanding there. To me, some of this language, I couldn't approve this language as is. I'll just say, and like I said, I don't want to go to talking about it too much, but inclusion is so important. And there's a lot of viewpoints in this city that represent a lot of different interests in this city that make the city great. And we have to make sure all those viewpoints and interests are addressed when we do get to something like this. And I think we've got a great group of volunteer residents already who are working hard and who are going to keep coming back and who were here at the end of last year coming forward and now are thinking, okay, it's March, where are we with this process? And I completely understand that. And to Councilmember Hoderick's point, a lot has happened since then, obviously, and we can talk a little bit more about that maybe. But the other aspect is, so we create a committee, whatever that looks like. What are the actionable steps? What is the deliverable going to be from that, so that, like Councilmember Abraham said, it's not a waste of anybody's time. It's not a waste of city resources. I'll be very frank. I love our Global Troy Advisory Committee. There was a period of time when, and Rebecca knows about this, they felt like they were kind of just wafting the breeze. Like they didn't have much of a direction, they didn't know what they were doing, and yet they were a city committee, a board that was meeting regularly, using staff time. And I would never want to create a new committee that ever experiences anything like that. So I'm really the actionable steps of what kind of thing they provide, what kind of advisory opinions they would give to the council. Is this committee supposed to be involved in all decision-making for development plans? Are they just, as they are now, meeting in private settings and coming to us with ideas? There's a lot of questions on that for me, and I think that really is important. We do have very precious city resources that are stretched so thin right now. So I hear a conversation of, it couldn't be more timely. in one respect, I totally agree. We're approving a development of 25 acres in concept, and that is a timely time to say, hey, what are we doing with sustainability? On the flip side, what Ellen didn't say is, you know, it's no secret, we're working with a fire department issue right now that is more timely than anything. And we've got finance employees working, you know, 18 to 20-hour days, and on top of a budget that's coming up, a budget process. So I don't know how that all works together. I, in my heart, and for the good of the city, want to say, yeah, let's move forward with something like this, but I don't know. I don't want to do it this month, and I don't know, we've got a budget to approve by May. I don't want to kick the can too far down and to upset residents, to upset council members. It's not about that to me, so I don't know where that happy medium is. Obviously, I have a lot of other thoughts, just like I said, about who's on the committee, how that really gets looked at. We've got a process where we appoint boards and committees. They often can be kind of narrow in scope of the people that get appointed because of the people we know. It's hard for us, as we've all been pro tem or even, you know, appointing people. You tend to appoint the people that you know of and that are in your circle, right? Something that important like this, I'd like to see it really broad, so everyone's voices included, all viewpoints. I think, you know, we had the Green Space Subcommittee a few years ago, which did a lot of great work. I also feel like some of that was done to, not to parrot a term, but placate some people, and I think that we could always look at our past experience with this to do a better job. And I want to make sure, again, that if we're going to do this, we do it right. So there's a lot of options, always mindful of what our role is in city government. I think we've agreed we can play a role in this. You know, whether or not we're playing a role in global issues as it relates to the environment, I think we need to be pretty careful about what we're talking about. But what we're doing in our own backyard that has an effect, that's fine. I think that's fair game. The language is going to be very, very important to me, because there's 88,000 people in this city whose every one of their interests needs to be represented. And how we frame this is so important, I think, so it's successful, right? If we frame it too directly, I hate to go there, partisan in one direction or not, we potentially set it up for failure, and I don't want to do that, right? I want this to be an effective use of our resources if we're going to go there. I just want to touch briefly on the budget process. I guess I'm a little confused. I don't see this as a budget issue so much. If we're looking to hire somebody for this, I will scream into a microphone. We don't even have a communications person yet. And if we're hiring something else, I will, I mean, I'm sorry, I hate to be so frank. Maybe as it gets later, we get a little more frank, but it's, that concerns me. So I mean, obviously, Councilmember Hamilton, thank you, I mean, for keeping this fresh in our discussions and going forward. Consensus is tough. I mean, I don't know, I heard support in some respect or another for this concept from everyone. And I heard, I'm not really sure what I heard support from as far as consensus from the first four of you that spoke. If that was to move forward with this or what. I mean, Councilmember Abraham's right. When Global Troy was created, it was very much created and driven by city staff involvement and after a vetting process. And that's the wiser choice for me, except for then we run up into all the issues we're facing as far as city staff's time and availability. So I'm a little stuck. I know this is not a council referral, so there's no vote tonight. I'd like there to be some kind of outcome from tonight's conversation to at least give city staff either I don't want to say necessarily direction to do anything too intense, but I think we owe city staff after this conversation and our residents an understanding of where we are in this process so that something's being done. I'm open to narrowing that unless four of you are going to say, no, I think we consent to move forward with this proposal, and within your right. I just, please be mindful, right, of everything. So I mean, thank you, but Councilmember Hamilton, we'll go back to you. It is.
Yeah, no, you know, I'm not even ready to, you know, move this at all. I just, you know, we haven't had a formal discussion on this. It's been brought up to council, and I just wanted, this is a good, you know, initial version and initial discussion point to begin the discussion. And I appreciate everyone's comments, and I really don't disagree with anything anyone said. I mean, I think it's all reasonable. I know our first budget sessions are only 4 weeks away. So, and like you said, this isn't directly a budget item, but that is a good opportunity when all city staff is together to say, you know, if in the next year, you know, this is kind of, we want to make progress on this, what does that look like to all your departments? You know, I like you said, we're not gonna, I don't want to hire anyone for this now. Like, that would be something years down the road, if ever. But I'm curious, a lot of staff here is familiar with starting Global Troy and other committees, and Troy used to have a lot more committees before the Great Recession. And so I just kind of want to get more of a sense of what it would take to do something like this, what it would take to have more of a like formal outward-facing sustainability plan and sustainability effort with the city, and maybe just to add it as one of our priorities for the year. I know that the advance was 4 months ago, so I mean, you know, things change. It's a once-a-year time to see the priorities at that time, and you know, I felt like there was a sense that council is on board with this. You know, I'm not sure because we never had a formal discussion, but I'd like to see it as one of many priorities that we're pushing towards. You know, I know right now, I totally agree. Right now, in the next few months, is just hearing from Mark and city staff, they literally are working 100-hour weeks right now to get this firefighter issue resolved the right way. And so I don't think this is something we can do now, because any committee, anything like this, is going to take staff resources. But I'd like to see, and then as that winds down, as we resolve that, to see more progress on this, and this added to our, you know, 10 or so priorities we have over the rest of this year. And just to get some feedback in the budget sessions in a month, like what does that look like for you with the staffing you're asking for this year? How do you feel like if something like this were to happen in the coming months, how that would affect you and what their thoughts are? I don't want to like add too much to the budget process. I know it's a long process, but at the same time, it's like once every year for the advance to put forward ideas and priorities. I think we need a little flexibility to change that if that's what a majority of council wants. But I just brought this forward because especially with like the DT stuff and people losing power and like, it just drive me crazy. And like, literally, if you make 80% of the average income in Troy, you can get solar and battery put in completely covered by subsidies. Like, I would love if, you know, maybe it's a committee or maybe it's some other effort to help residents know that and then get it done, you know, and whatever that means for us. If it's part of the communication strategy, I could see the sustainability committee working with the communication strategy to get information out like that out there. I mean, I would have really liked it the other day if I had the battery backup come on when my power went out. So that would be nice to see. But no, I appreciate the discussion. I don't think I have any, you know, formal action tonight, but I guess the only consensus I would look for is that this just be a topic we mention in the budget session next month, and that we consider adding it as one of our priorities. I'm not sure, we don't really have like a list of strategies like we used to, but I would like to, whatever we do have now, which I don't fully remember now, I'd like to see it as one of those, so that I know Mark used to give us like progress reports on all the different priorities we have throughout the year and then efforts that were made. So I'd like this to be one of those things that's like, you know, we make an effort to do and make progress on. Of course, we need council on board with that. I prefer to have all of council on board with that. So, but I'm open to continuing this discussion as we go.
I think we could probably go a step further than that, because I mean, in my opinion, those lists of things are a great place for something to go and kind of float around on lists for a few years. But as you were talking, I know Councilmember Erickson Galt also wants to say something, but I was thinking, you know, for me, I'm fully comfortable tonight, if we could get this to give consensus to, after the budget's approved, maybe in the early summer, or is to have a study session.
Yeah.
It gives our residents an opportunity to meet together, which they're already doing. Come to that with some ideas. Obviously, city staff takes the burden on that, but I'm hoping that by June, maybe things look a little different. You'll all be tired from all the work we're doing on the other issues.
Maybe
but
July.
I mean, the summer, but I would like to see consensus to ask city staff to schedule a study session this summer focused on this issue, giving us some options of what we really could do. We talked a little bit about this before, but I don't think just putting it on talking about it in a one-off of the budget or adding it to something, we don't have a list of priorities anymore like that. Right. A number of reasons, but I think we can go further tonight with something. And I mean, I don't know.
I like that.
I don't know exactly. I mean, I think the consensus from us is city staff, you put together a great meeting for us, but we should address some of these issues on options of what we could do, what it looks like to create a new border committee or a subcommittee of another department maybe, what the honest restraints are from your resource standpoint, from the budget, from staff. I'd like to incorporate some of the resident work that's already being done.
Sure.
I think that goes along with the transparent aspect of it's an open meeting, gives other opportunities and viewpoints, some people time to it's a publicized meeting, gives people an opportunity to come share some things. That's kind of where I'm at tonight. Again, thankful that we're talking about it, even though although it hasn't been publicly spoken, I think it's been on a lot of our minds.
Yeah.
Including city staff. Is there consensus for that?
Yep. I think that's a great idea.
Yes.
And Councilmember Hamilton? Hoderick, you're over there.
In terms of, the solar panel information, when information comes in to us, and usually our reps, senators, they'll send us, links or to help residents find information. I have no issue with encouraging staff, and when it communicates, yard waste pickup resumes April 2nd, I think, those kinds of social media hits and whatnot, reinforcing that information to help people be aware. Certainly, as council members on our social media, we can share that information. I'm right with you. Let's not wait about what we're talking about and encouraging. We don't need a committee to keep that dialogue going. We're here to do that, so I would also, we don't have to wait for a communication person to do that either. We can be helping share that information, because I think there's a desire on the part of a lot of people, especially after DTE situation with the trees coming down, for that information. There's an appetite for it. So I just want to affirm you on that.
Right, and I've been terrible with my social media. I haven't posted anything once, but very busy. But
I'm sorry. Ann, did you have something?
I was just going to suggest what you had suggested as the consensus. That's what I was hearing, is that we're all in favor of moving forward. It's just a question of when. And I agree that we should be moving forward after we put out the fires that are blazing right now.
No pun intended. Well, pun intended. David, do you have anything else?
No, I'm saying I like this. This is why I brought this forward as a comment. I just wanted us to have an open discussion on it. Everyone always gives good perspectives and different perspectives, and I think this is a good plan. We are very selective over our special sessions. They're not a normal thing, so when we do one of those, it's a good. It's what we do to make progress in things that I've seen quite a bit. So I like that.
City Manager. Thank you, David. Miller, do you understand what we've consented to tonight?
Yes.
Man of many words. All right. And I'm sure you'll take that into heart. And obviously, I want to just, again, thank Councilmember Hamilton for like bringing this back to the table. I have a lot going on, a lot of things, a lot of conversations about this in my mind over the past couple of days, especially. To the residents who came forward this evening, again, thank you. I think that you will play an important role even in these next few months, and I would hope that, I know you've already submitted potential actionable items in the past, but if you continue to refine those and meet and talk more about what we could do as a city or should do. And I also ask those who, the 8 of you who may be watching elsewhere, if you're a business owner or have other ideas, please weigh in on that as well. Certainly our planning commission is always, they think a lot about this, and there's a lot of potential opportunity, a lot of different viewpoints that could be, I think, brought to the table and really resourceful and really beneficial for us. So, okay. All right. That was the advanced comment. Are there any other council comments not related to that this evening? I probably have some, but I don't remember, lucky for everyone. No? All right. Let's see. So there's no one signed up for public comment for items on or not on the agenda for members of the public outside of Troy. And we do have a closed session this evening, so I will recess from in here. We'll pick up in closed session and, like I said, adjourn from in thereafter.